Welcome to Best in Faction.
A podcast about playing Warhammer 40k competitively.
I'm Colin.
I'm Chuck.
And that's it. Well, it's not actually it, but we don't have any Mitch today.
Harsh.
No.
I mean, I am Billy.
You are Billy.
Here you go.
It's true. Yeah, we do not have a Mitch. We didn't. Mitch got adulted by one of the most old and authentic adulting situations. He has his in-laws in town.
Yeah.
One of the truly inescapable adulting situations.
He's doing sitcom times.
Yeah. And then I said, should we move it or just replace you? And he said, well, I'm leaving for Denver on Monday. We don't have any information about why Mitch is in Denver or what he's doing in Denver, but he was leaving on Monday. So that's great. So no Mitch today. Just Billy. Only Billy. Just either quality or quantity. No, I'm kidding. We adore
Billy, how
Billy.
are you doing? This is a barrage, and I apologize.
I know. I've just lost my way entirely.
How
are you doing, Billy?
Doing wonderfully. I grew up with a Jewish mother from Long Island who's actually right here giving me English muffins. And I learned
that was amazing.
Yeah, that was actually exactly on cue.
Hey, Billy, what I need you to do is swap chairs. Your mom's clearly...
This podcast could go in an entirely different direction, but absolutely fill the time slot if we got my mother to replace me. I promise you.
I've
but
got
no,
this
sarcasm and snark.
She made me food. Like, what is that?
Yeah, sarcasm and snark is sort of our go-to means of displaying love and affection for each other.
All right. Okay, so we actually love that Billy's here today. Billy's here because I took his list that he had been playing that I said was not good. And then I took it and I played it and I changed it and I took it to a GT and I enjoyed it very much. So since Mitch wasn't able to come, I thought it'd be fun to bring Billy, the original architect of the list. And Billy also has some love for Chaos Space Marines, which Chuck took to a GT. So today we're talking about the Aegis GT. And I took Ynarri and Chuck took Creations of Bile.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep wanting to call it something other than that. But
Agents of Bile?
What's that?
Me too. I that's my fault. I called it Agents of Bile. Yeah.
There's like meetings.
Yeah.
At the Agents of Bile. And then Billy's going to help us go through our games and talk to us about the things that are happening. I did want to just before we get started. We have to do the thing we normally do. Chuck, how are you? What's going on in your life?
I'm doing pretty good. I've just started playing Cult of the Lamb, and I'm almost done with it. And that means I'm not getting enough sleep. But other than that, I'm having a great time.
All right. Billy, how about you? What's going on in your life?
Drove to Tucson yesterday from San Francisco, and boy, are my arms tired.
That's how much you get out of that from me.
It's all I needed. It's about the level of energy for joking I had if you'd seen me yesterday.
Okay. I'm playing a bunch of 40K. I had the amazing time at the GT last weekend. We'll talk about that. Yesterday, Chuck and I played some 40K, which we'll talk about in just a second. Let's see what else. I'm watching Game of Thrones with my wife, which I had never done before, and we're now well past the book, so things are going poorly narratively. But enjoyed it thoroughly. We were just having a conversation that the Cult of the Many-Faced God by Chuck's assertion have to be evil because you want to explain, Chuck?
Well, killing people is wrong.
Oh, I see.
It doesn't matter why you do it. It's wrong. But also, if you take their faces and decorate your living room, you're a baddie. Like there's no, there's not a lot of room here.
Are we the baddies?
Yeah. So, when you could put on your victim's face and say, yeah, you're the baddie. You know, you're in a problem. You got a problem.
So Game of Thrones actually has something in common with 40K. It is unclear who the good guys are. Right?
Yeah,
I don't know about the books, but in the TV show that we're very short on good guys.
Yeah. You don't think the Starks are good guys? Like Sansa, Arya?
If they mattered, sure, but mostly because they just walk around and things happen to them. So I guess
that's a very fair critique.
like especially Sansa is really just along for the ride. She does not make a lot of decisions. And Arya is not really doing Stark. Arya is clearly not a good guy. How about that? She's very murdery.
Killing people and taking their faces
is wrong.
Makes you a bad guy.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, enough about Game of Thrones. We're watching Game of Thrones. We're having a great time. We had never seen it. which is weird because I watch usually all the things. We're also watching Sandman. But other than that, I'm playing some video games and just having a relaxing summer. All my kids are back from being away for the summer, and we're now everybody's starting football, and we're a few weeks out from school. So lots going on. Now we're going to talk about the network, but not in super length. I just wanted to remind those of you that only listen to this show that we have other shows on the network as well. With the what's that show called? Fight Club. With the Fight Club guys leaving, we took those resources, and Billy and I are now doing a weekly news program Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific, right here on the network. Basically, we have a very set format. We tell you, we talk about a top story from the competitive world of 40K. Then we talk about everything that's new from GW or anything else that's relevant to the game. Then we talk about what things won that weekend and why they won. And then we deep dive into a meta list and explain to you how it works. So every Tuesday morning, you can find that on the podcast stream that you're already listening to this on, if that's where you're finding it. Otherwise, you'll find it on our YouTube. I also want to give a shout out to the wonderful content that the TNG guys are doing. They do this show on just to a deep level. They really do a great job of talking about strategy. They're Saturday mornings. You can find them here as well. And finally, a wonderful, wonderful appreciation for the Frontiers guys. The first few episodes of Frontiers are a little first and second episode-ish, but they're at their 10th episode now, and they've really solidified. And they're doing a wonderful job talking about the meta at large, interviewing people, talking about the world. And if you think that Australia doesn't matter to 40K, well, you should see what they're doing at WTC, because right now they're ahead of America.
Yeah.
So, WTC is happening right now. We will talk about how that wraps up Tuesday morning on This Week in 40K with the lovely Billy and myself. All right. I guess we talk about Aegis now. I don't have anything else. Like, I feel like in the spirit of BIFPOD, I feel like I should riff for another 20 minutes.
I think it would be fine if we just went.
Yeah, we could just talk about the main topic.
Okay. You could plug the merch store.
Oh, I could.
Let's not. I don't think people want to know about the merch store.
I like the merch store.
Well, that's weird. Hey, we have merchandise now. And the merchandise not only supports the network, but it also directly supports the show creators that merch is from. You can find it at bestedtabletop.com. And you click, there's a store there. It is not fulfilled by me, which means you will actually get your product quickly when you purchase it. That was one of the criteria of doing the merch store, is that Colin is not responsible for shipping things to you. I will give one update from that. If you won something at Charity Hammer, we made a discovery that several people thought that the other person was collecting the addresses for that. So we have not been collecting the addresses for it. Billy and I are going to send out a mass mail tomorrow. That will on Monday, the 15th of August. So if you won something, check your email. You're going to have the option of saying that you don't want the thing that you won and that you should want it redonated, or you can give us your address and the thing will get shipped out. Sorry about that. Important update that I should have mentioned. So, okay. So we went to Aegis GT, and it was the first day of operation for a new local game store. I told this story on this week, but I'll tell it here as well. We had a wonderful game store about 30 miles from my home, actually pretty near the Canadian border. Excuse me. That had done a lot for the community. They ran a lot of events, and they donated to Charity Hammer, and the people running it, the local team that was running it, was just wonderful humans. This guy, JT Steiger, his brother Lee Steiger, Hannah, Nick Villegas, all these people were wonderful. And unfortunately, the owner of that store, who lived across the country, posted a thing on the Facebooks that can only be interpreted as offensive to a large portion of the population. It was particularly offensive for those that are living their lives in LBGT and trans and those sorts of lifestyles. And unfortunately for that store owner, that is a very Western Washington thing. Bellingham is an incredibly inclusive city. Bellingham is predominantly college students in a very liberal state. So that they have no patience for these sorts of shenanigans. The internet boycotts that were called for were immediate and aggressive. I was hammering everywhere I was, Discord, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere I was seeing stuff about Dark Tower as the store. So Charity Hammer alum and local amazing human Noah Badome gathered together a group of owners, and they have purchased the store from that person, inventory, everything. But they opened a new business, and it's called Aegis Games, and it is built under the idea of inclusivity. They want to make sure everybody has a place to go play games where they feel accepted for who they are. And that means the world to me. I am the son of a man who is gay and was born in 1940. So you can imagine what that life was like for my father. I have transitioned family members. I just really think that we don't get to decide how we're supposed to live our life, that we live our life in a particular way that is what we're meant to do. And I think you should be allowed to do that. So sorry if that's too political for you, but the fact that Aegis Games opened that up.
I'm going to put out there. If that's too political for you, go
turn
find
off the show.
Podcast.
That's probably
We're
fair.
done with you.
Yes.
Get the hell out.
Best in Tabletop is really about inclusivity.
I got no apologies.
We would have more inclusivity if Warhammer had more inclusivity.
Don't get me started there.
Yeah. Anyways, they now have the new store Aegis Games. They had a GT. It had 26 people at it. And it had everyone, almost, there was one person missing, but almost everyone who's won a major tournament in Washington State for like 8 years. Yeah. It was very, very stacked. Both Lucas and Dodge were there. Steve Trimble, who's won as many tournaments, if not more, than I have, was there. I was there, obviously. Alex McDougall, who's won career-wise about as many tournaments as I have. Zach, who's won a bunch of tournaments, was there.
Hank.
Obviously, what's that?
Hank was also there.
Oh, yeah, Hank has won a bunch of stuff. Hank was there. So it was very stacked for 26 people. And the end result is that our games were very challenging and pretty darn interesting. So, Chuck, I think you should start by talking about what you took and why. Because you were not taking the Anthony Emperor's Chosen list, Emperor's Children, Emperor's Chosen.
Chosen is Custodes.
Wow,
I like they get mixed up all the time.
Yeah.
They're both proud and loved by the Emperor, and then they fall.
Someone evil is telling them to do things they shouldn't be doing in both cases, so, whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's good that we're talking about this because it stalls me out because I just remembered I don't actually know what's on my list anymore because I've updated it.
Oh, okay.
So, there we go. Look at that. BCP to the rescue.
Oh, nice.
Said someone once.
Yeah.
Well, give it a chance. It might crash on me.
Well, you haven't tried to search for events yet.
Oh, no. Okay. Can't do that live. That would be embarrassing. What we're doing here is Creations of Bile. It's going to have a Demon Prince with Marker Nurgle, and he's got the decay. It's the demon weapon that makes it so that when you hit, you wound, and you ignore phase caps, feel no pains, that stuff.
Okay.
And then he has Twisted Regeneration, so he gets back up when he dies on a 2+. You have to pick between that and Fights on Death, but I've gotten pretty good at engineering situations where he runs in, he fights, he kills something, they kill him back, he gets back up, and then they're like, oh, well, I don't want to solve that with a charge because you'll get another fight phase with him, right?
Chuck, I have to interrupt you because we have live news.
Oh, okay.
I'm being told by our Discord that Australia has just won the WTC.
Oh, congratulations.
Wow.
And that is fire. They also won the singles event at WTC.
Yeah.
Oh, well, guess what?
Australia has been mocked for their meta for the whole time I've been playing 40K.
Yeah.
They have inventory and supply chain issues that none of us can relate to.
No.
Their stuff is more expensive than ours. Their country is more spread out than we are. So tournaments are harder, and that team just took down WTC. I want to give a big shout out and a offensive g'day to Australia because that is just absolutely amazing. I obviously would have preferred America to win, but I am thrilled that Australia won.
Well, I like a twist. That sounds great to me.
Yeah, that's
surprise.
I believe what happened is at the end of yesterday, US beat Australia, but then lost to Poland this morning, which is
England. We beat England yesterday,
and they beat Australia yesterday.
Did we?
I thought they played both.
Maybe I thought Australia was today, and we lost.
Hey, we lost to Poland. I know that. Anywho, we lost to Poland, which is a team, despite being a tenth the size of our country, or smaller, is amazing at 40K. We tied. That's right. I'm sorry. We tied the Aussies. That's right. That's how they won, right? We tied them, and then we lost to Poland, and they beat their round, and then there you go. They win. Mm-hmm. So we will be talking about that. That'll be our top story on this week on Tuesday. Billy and I will dive into that and talk all about it. But I did just want to let everybody know because we have people watching live, and it's just happened.
That's very cool.
Congratulations, Australia.
All right. Not at all related to Australia. Back to Creations of Bile.
They might be. We don't know affiliations one way or the other. Okay. So that's Demon Prince. He also has warp time. I don't think I ever cast it. He's there for mental interrogation. It's like don't get confused. And then I also bring a Lord Discordant. I give him the Bale Flamer and Flames of Smite and the Black. This is the reroll to wound, 6s to wound are mortals, and then for every successful wound with just his glaive, I get a mortal wound. So he pumps out 6 to 8 mortal wounds, and then all the damage that Lord Discordant puts out. What I've discovered through this game and other games is like that's actually too much. He never hits anything that needs that much, so I'll probably be taking the Black off of him to try to bring it down and get CP somewhere else or something. And then I took a Master Possession. I gave him the Libra Hereticus. This is the extra 6 inches on your spells. And then cast one more spell. It packed up Lasting Cursed Earth. I think these are
so far the names of your things are really dumb and boring. Like Libra of Hereticus. Come on, GW. And I'm sorry, what's the weapon called on the Demon Prince?
I'm not going to try to pronounce it.
Oh, I thought
I'm giving you the title and not the
It's got a lot of apostrophes and synchronous consonants. It's not.
I think that if you're a Chaos character and your sword is called Chaos Blade, maybe GW could have done better, is all I'm saying about the Libra of Hereticus. Oh, the Book of the Heretic? Oh, wow, that is creative. Sorry, please continue, Chuck.
That's what happens when the Imperium names your shit for you. Then I have 5 Chaos Space Marines. They have the book and they have Prescience. I have 8 Accursed Cultists, 10 Cultists, and then 1 big brick of 10 Possessed. They get an icon and they get the relic of the Black Rune of Damnation.
-1 to wound.
Yeah, -1 to wound. 2 5-man Possessed units, 2 5-man Warp Talent units, and then the part that everybody goes, wait, what? 3 squads of 5 Havocs with Las Cannons.
Which are there because
I can't beat Knights without them. I also can't really beat planes, but that's not as much of a problem.
And it turns out you can just stand them behind walls where the Knights can't see them.
Oh yeah, they just shoot big Knights. Just like, here we go. They work really great in that matchup, and then not so great in like all other matchups. I keep putting them in, and they keep going like, I want something else. So I don't know. I'm all over the place on that.
So why don't you talk about what Creations of Bile is? What do you get from being Creations of Bile?
Creations of Bile gives you 3 things. Well, there's 4 things really. The 3 things you get for like your sub faction is you get +1 strength, +1 movement, and you fight when you die.
Wildly reasonable chapter tactic. Doesn't give you hardly anything.
Fight on death is enough.
All 3 of those things are amazing.
Yeah. We get 4, which is really just 3 stratagems, to where most of them get like 8. And you know what? Fine, don't care.
Yeah.
I get 1 usable warlord trait and relics that are all like, maybe. Fine, don't care. Fight on death. I'll take it. The other thing it gives you is specimens for the spider. It's their secondary. It's in the
Nephilim book.
It's in it is in the Nephilim book. I mean, it's in the category where big game is, and it gives you points for killing non-vehicle squads and for killing monsters and characters. I generally get a 15 out of it. And then if they have mostly vehicles and it doesn't count, well, you just take big game. Doesn't matter.
Right.
So it's really nice. Particularly anytime you can run into that and no prisoners, it's just like, well, this game is going to be easy. I just go kill the opponent and then we're done.
And your reason why Creations of Bile is good for you, Chuck, specifically, I think is interesting, and people are probably like,
yeah. So I'm a little too aggressive fairly regularly. I'll put things too close to people and then get charged. Well, when that happens, great. I get a refund. right? Like if I put my guys too close and Colin shoots his 5 banshees out there and wrecks them, kills 4 of my 5 possessed, well, those banshees are gone. I don't have to worry about that anymore.
That was a bad example because the banshees, of course, are going to die. They're banshees, but I've played Chuck with multiple close combat armies, and it is wildly frustrating to play into the Bile. I think meta wise, other than Imperial Knights and maybe Tau, which no one here plays, there isn't a lot of shooting armies. Everybody's doing close combat for the most part, and so that's a big part of why Chuck is right that Bile's pretty good right now. Yeah. Because as you hear his games, people had to punch him to win, and if they have to punch him to win, then he's going to punch back, and it makes the math for trading incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, there's lots of situations where I just put 5 possessed on the middle objective, and they can't shoot it off, so they have to send somebody to punch it. They also want that unit that punched it to land on the objective and hold it, and it doesn't. They go in, they punch the possessed die, and they kill the thing that was there as well, and nobody owns the objective.
Right.
It's a fascinating army. It's really fun to play.
If I can jump in to ask one question, I didn't hear a Terminator brick in there, and that's been like the staple of every Chaos army. So
and no Abaddon.
Yeah, no Abaddon.
Talk about.
So no Abaddon is mostly about the specimens for the spider. I don't want him killing targets that won't count towards it. But the other part of it is like he is very, very good. I'm not having trouble killing people in close combat. I don't need more killing people in close combat. So basically, he's out. And 12 las cannons are in. It's kind of
so that's Abaddon. What about the Terminators?
So the Terminator brick is very expensive.
Okay.
It's 330 points plus a couple of upgrades probably for itself, and then you have to buy a chaplain that's for Chaos, Dark Disciple.
Yeah.
And so now you're up to 400 points, and all it does is not die.
Right. And you don't.
It doesn't kill anything. My possessed and my warp talons are going to go 10 to 13 inches, and then it's going to go 5.
Right.
They're not going to do anything to it because it's not an immediate need on their part. And then I'm going to attack their army, and then it's going to go another 5 and hold the center. And they're still going to be dealing with the possessed and the warp talons. So it's like, what's it doing here? I think you see Abaddon and the Terminators because the Terminators are delivery for Abaddon. But I don't need Abaddon, so I don't need the Terminator, so I don't and it just sort of cascades.
Yeah.
I'd actually say one of the weakest things I did is put the 10 possessed in with the Black Ruin. I think it would be better to just have all of the MSU.
Because you just
all the time.
trade out.
Yeah. The 10 gives my opponent something to focus on. Even if it is -1 to wound, it's still...
Right, because you don't have Trans-Hitman in there.
Nope. Yeah, you can't put that on possessed. You can only put it on 4, so...
Otherwise, I think thing about that is, well, for one, in Chuck's list, if he had Trans-Hitman, he wouldn't have it sometimes because he can't. He has to roll for it, right?
It's 2 up, but yeah, if it fails on the wrong time,
about one turn in game, you're not going to have it.
Right.
But the other thing is that everybody's gearing to kill that Terminator brick, so for Chuck to not have it, I think is actually really smart.
Or just ignore it.
Yeah, or they just ignore it.
Base case scenario, you run that thing forward, you advance it, you go. In case with Bile, you go 6 plus D6, and then you warp time it for another 6. But if I want to put that same thing into my possessed, they go 20 plus D6 inches. So that 10-man unit goes off to like a weird flank and is like, I'm uncomfortable over here, and there's nothing you can do about me. That's a big deal. I never end up doing it because it's not real. But I tell my opponent about it, and they go, and they huddle up more. Which, I mean, this is the kind of army that just wants to curb you into a smaller area, own the real estate, and then die slowly if it can.
Right. So let's talk about the Ynarri list.
Yeah.
So Billy,
yes.
Do you remember what the list was you handed me originally before I changed it entirely?
Broadly, I mean, is it better for me to say what it was and then you to say the changes, or you to say the list and me to say?
I don't know. I just think it's an interesting story. So Billy had a list that was built around getting behind enemy lines and throwing fast things. Okay, let's talk about Ynarri in general first. Yeah. Ynarri is a custom is kind of a craft world in the craft world Elder Codex, with a lot of restrictions on what you can take. But you are allowed to take Drukhari and Harlequin units. You get their strats.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you? Yeah, you do, obviously.
You get the Drukhari ones. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, I didn't use any Drukhari strats, so I don't know.
You definitely get the clown strats because
they're in the same book. Yeah, so you get the clown strats and you get the CWE strats, and Ynarri gives the whole army fight first. What that matters for is if you get multi-charged, because what it means is that in the charge phase, if your stuff didn't charge, your stuff goes before the normal phase. Which is or if you stay in combat, which it doesn't happen to elves because they just die. But if you hang in combat, that would also be a thing. Everybody gets fight first. If you lose a model in any of the units, you get +1 to hit in the shooting and punchy phase, which is wonderful. As Billy pointed out when I started playing the list, it makes you feel better about losing people. There are 10-man troop units in the list that are a pillar of what the list does. And if you lose a troop and go down to 9, you have 4 less attacks, but everybody's hitting on 2s instead of 3s, so it kind of is offset.
It's sort of awkward. You want to hit it with Sky Falling Stars, but you don't.
Yeah,
it's like if you only kill one of them, it's super bad. But even just 2, you actually still made them more effective, probably.
Yeah. And then every Ynarri list has the Incarn. And the Incarn, when a unit dies, and there is the raw is weird, but everybody's ruling that it's the way it's supposed to be. So let's not worry about that. It gets to teleport to whether an enemy unit or your unit dies. It gets to go within 1 inch of the last model that was pulled. If it on the turn that it teleports, it cannot charge or heroically intervene. That's fine because of the way the list plays, which we'll talk about in detail. The Ynarri psychic tree, they're not allowed to have the Farseer tree. So you don't get the best powers in the game. You don't get Doom, Guide, Fortune, and Executioner, which are 4 of the best psychic powers that exist. But you do get any unit auto wounds on 6s to hit, +1 to wound, 4-up invul on a unit, directional smite,
bubble mortal wounds.
Oh yes, everybody within 9 inches takes 0 to 3 mortal wounds.
Pretty good on a model that can teleport.
On a model that teleports, yes. So the Ynarri upgrades are really interesting, and Billy's observation was these Ynarri upgrades combined with the Craft Rolled Elder and Harlequin buffs makes troops crazy in a way that they aren't before.
Right.
So you have these troops that can effectively be 40 attacks. I have an Autarch to make them reroll 1s. So hitting on 3s, maybe 2s if I lose someone. Rerolling 1s, auto wounding on 6s to hit. Plus, strength 4, AP up to 4, the way the list is built. Plus 1 to wound and 3 damage a hit.
Ignore invul.
And ignore invul. That's a thing you can do in 1 turn with a unit of troops. If you do just some of those, it kills a big knight with ease. It will wreck the Chaos Terminator brick we talked about before. These troops are ridiculously crazy with all the buffs on them. So Billy's initial list had
two big blocks of troops.
Yeah, but then 2 units of Shining Spears and a unit of Harlequin bikes and Scorpion, and it's a bunch of stuff. And did you have D-cannons in your original list?
I did not.
Okay. And Billy was saying, hey, I can't play the secondary game with Eldar. It's too hard. And Billy was saying, well, I took this really fast list with Shining Spears and Harlequin bikes and all this stuff, and I do behind enemy lines because, Fred's asking how you get to 3 damage. There's literally just a Harlequin strat that gives your weapons +1 damage up to a maximum of 3. It's 2 CP, but, that's fine. When you need it, you need it. Basically, it's for when you're fighting things it's basically when you're fighting things that have 3 wounds and you need them to die. Tyranid Warriors, Chaos Terminators, Possessed, whatever. So Billy's idea was, tell us how the original list played. Talk about behind enemy lines and how you played the list.
Yeah, so it was a combination of behind enemy lines and scout the enemy. Scout the enemy is the craft world specific secondary that Rangers do on their turn. Everyone else does on the next command phase, where it's an action. If you're 6 inches out from your deployment zone, you can do it, and then it's 2 points. And if you're in your opponent's deployment zone, it's 4 points. So the list between having those 2 secondaries and being fast and close combat-y, similar to what Chuck was saying about Creations of Bile, is it wanted to push into its opponent's deployment zone and basically have the entire game take place there. you didn't really care if your stuff died while doing that because you were scoring those points on your turn. And if your stuff was dying, then the Incarn was popping up there, and that was, fun for you and less fun for them. And because it traded out, you look at it on the table and you have a normal Craft World mental picture, and you don't think this is a particularly hitty-killy list. And it was just, there were no models on the table on either side after like turn 3 in most of the games that I was doing. So with Scout the Enemy, you have Rangers just coming in out of Phantasm, so like Strategic Reserve, in turn 2 or 3. And 3, you can come into their deployment zone, just not off their board edge. And you have 5 Rangers sitting there saying, I'm worth 6 secondary victory points a turn, come kill me. But if you do that, you're ignoring all of the parts of the army that's tabling you. So it put people in this weird tension, and just no one had reps into it because no one was playing Ynarri.
Right. So Billy said, try this. And so I played a practice game with it, and I thought it was really fun. And then I played, and then we did an RTT, basically, here, where I got to just play practice games with it. And what I found is that I was really bad at doing behind enemy lines, but I was winning anyways. And what the reason was that when an opponent comes out to me, so people, especially in my meta, are trained that the way you beat Eldar is to run at them. And when people were running at me, which is the right call against every Craft World Eldar list I've played, when people run at me, behind enemy lines became awkward because I didn't want to go behind them with my punch, right? I wanted to fight them where they were, because a core part of how I play 40K is to, and Chuck actually explains how I do this better than I do, but I'm going to give it a go. Chuck's explained this really articulately a few times, but I like the way I naturally play without any thought put into it is I like to hide and trade a little bit with you and stay close until the time is right. And then I like to push my whole army in to table someone. And I'm very good at that way of playing. And so when I played Billy's list, I liked it. I went 2-1 with it at this pretend RTT. I lost to Chuck's Bile list, which is brutally hard to play it into. I lost by 5, though. We had an incredibly close, super interesting game. One of our favorite games we've had in a long time.
Warp Talons are great against elves.
That's it sure turns out. So I took the list and I changed it quite a bit, actually. I changed probably 800 points of it. And the idea was, I'm not going to take behind enemy lines. I'm just going to table people. And I took that to the GT, and I was right. I was very, very right. So let's talk about what's in the list and why. It starts off, first of all, it's a battalion. Billy's original version was was a battalion or double patrol.
It moved back and forth depending on how many HQs I wanted, but yeah.
Right. Well, the other problem is you can only have one non-craft rolled battlefield in a battlefield slot. Go for it, Billy.
Yeah, in a battlefield slot, you have to have a 1-to-1 ratio of Craft World Eldar unit to non-Craft World Eldar unit. So you can have one Craft World Eldar unit and then one either Drukhari or Clown in equivalent to it in each slot. Yes. So having 2 HQs that are Craft World don't let you have 2 elites that are not. It has 2 HQs to 2 HQs and so on and so forth.
And so the problem is you really want 2 Harlequin bike units. And so you spend a lot of time with this list trying to convince yourself to take another detachment for less CP so that you can have 2 Craft World Eldar fast attacks and 2 Harlequin bike units.
Yeah.
And the reality is, ended up there, Billy?
What's that, Chuck?
Well, the Shining
That's how the Shining Spears ended up in there.
The Shining Spears ended up there because Hank was hyping them up at Charity Hammer, and I'm a high elf cavalry player from the waybacks. So you just tell me I can put elf cavalry on the board, and my arm doesn't need much twisting. But the other thing is, this is one of the few Eldar lists that wants to be a battalion because the troop slot is not attacks. It's actually the core of the army.
Yep. Okay. And I'll talk about Shining Spears in just a moment when you hear that I don't have any in this list.
Neither do I at this point.
Okay, so it's a battalion, and then the 3 HQs are, I have an Autarch. He's got Ambush of Blades. You might think that all the Craft World Eldar warlord traits are bad. This one is not. Yeah. It is a 9-inch, give a thing that's core extra AP in combat. Because of the way that Ynarri works, that means it works on Harlequin troops. Harlequin troops are great, but the core problem in mono Harlequins is that they don't have an ability to be better than Strength 4. They don't have any ability to wound better. So if you fight anything that's T5 or above, it's rough. And they can't get better than AP2 in their core book. This list solves both of those issues through the genius of Billy. Other people are doing this as well, but they aren't. The Ynarri list that won that California GT. Which one?
Palm Springs.
Yeah, the Palm Springs GT actually didn't have Harlequin troops in it.
Yeah, it's a very different concept.
Yeah, it was a list that just did a crazy number of mortals to you.
I can't imagine having access to that unit and not having at least one 10-man break. It's like a don't come near my deployment zone.
It's the sort of thing that you have to see all of the compounding buffs on it, and it's not obvious that you can put them on there. Like, that's the thing with this Ynarri list is, and part of what I love about it is you have to Rube Goldberg through the book to find, and then you can add this on top, and then this on top, and then this on top, and it's one of the few cases in GW games where that's actually, the juice is worth the squeeze.
Ignoring the juice is worth the squeeze because phrasing. I think that
the girl next door.
I don't know. I think that the rules are unnecessarily complicated for this army, and there were several times where Hank and Billy and I were literally reading words trying to figure out what was okay and what was not. So not a good job, GW, but it is a very fun army. Okay, so the Autarch has Ambush of Blades. Now, the Autarch is actually a foot Autarch with wings, which is for some reason just significantly better than the bike Autarch. And I gave him a Howling Banshee mask. That is a fight last. That is a no Overwatch. The list needs those because the army is T3 one wound models charging at things, and it needs fight, and it needs all of that. And fight last is actually a really core part of the Incarn that we'll talk about in just a second. So, Autarch on foot, 5 points with his glaive. He's 5 attacks on 2, strength 6, AP 3, 2 damage. And you think, well, that's dumb. I played Drukhari and the characters are way better than that. And then you play him in a game and he just clears objectives of bullshit. So he's really actually quite good. I think in our game yesterday, Chuck, against the Necrons, he killed a unit of Tomb Blades. Something needed to kill the unit of Tomb Blades, right? And he helped he helped something get into the he helped somebody make a charge too in a game. So it's great. Then I have a Farseer. This Farseer could be a Shadow Seer. 2 versions of the list. We go back and forth. I'm back on the Farseer again, Billy. The Farseer has Fateful Divergence, which is the +1 CP power, and then Unbind Souls, which is auto wound on 6s to hit. That's very important because you think, the Incarn has all of the Ynarri psychic powers, and so you'll just cast from him. The Incarn's busy. He does not have time to buff units back in your army, so you need this power back in your army to put on your troops because the Incarn is not there and is busy, basically on every turn, which we'll talk about.
And if I can just jump in right there to why I think the Farseer is better, and I'm there as well. The Farseer can use Fate dice, the Shadow Seer can't. So you get that 6 to wound off, and that thing is a huge damage upgrade. Right.
It's the most important power you're casting typically, unless the Incarn is in their deployment zone, and then the Mortal Wound Aura is the most important power.
Yeah.
All right. So then I have the Incarn. Incarn has all of the Ynarri powers. You can't take anything else on the Incarn. Then I've got 2 units of Rangers, and then 2 units of 10 troops with all the weapons on them. No fusion. I don't ever not advance. Craft Elder people can shoot their pistols after advancing. Harlequins cannot. Harlequins have to advance because I have no fate dice to help them charge. So if it's going to be a 4-inch charge, I'd rather advance and make it a 1-inch charge. If you guys don't know this, I've played predominantly close combat for a lot of 40K. Close combat armies lose because you missed a charge. I'm never going to not advance the Harlequins, so I save the points by not giving them the fusion pistols. And then after they kill something, people say, whoa, that was scary, and that unit dies. So it does not get a second turn of doing things normally. Then I have the 2 units of Banshees that I always take. One is the Mortal Wounds. One is the 2 damage Sword Lady. That Mortal Wound Banshee is the unit people don't take. Hey, y'all, you're wrong. I'm just going to be cocky about that. That unit's phenomenally crazy or awesome. Also, having both those units of Banshees, that, by the way, can advance with Fate Dice and charge with Fate Dice, that gives me 2 more Fight Lasts and no Overwatches. So now we're up to 3 Fight Lasts and 3 Ignore Overwatches, which is a really big deal. We played a test game yesterday, Chuck and I, where I was rusty, and we had to pull back the first turn because I was going to charge into things without Fight Last, and it just wasn't going to work. And I was like, I'm sorry, I just did this wrong. We have to pull back.
I would like you to interrupt and kill one of my units of Harlequins. Oh, no, that's not right.
Yeah, please don't. And then I have a unit of 5 Incubi, which sounds weird because Ynarri pays extra points for them. This is a Striking Scorpion unit in a previous version of the list. I didn't have Striking Scorpions ready to go, but having played with them, this unit is cheaper than the Striking Scorpion unit and does not require any buffs. It doesn't require any of the powers, any of the strats. You run out of CP in this list. This is a backfield objective holder that later in the game charges and just whoops something. It really is not a bad use for 110 points. It is something that you could just put into Scorpions if you like Scorpions better.
It's also another Fight Last.
It is also another Fight Last, which is really amusing against Tyranids because their leadership is terrible. So, like, I put them in one game, I put them up on a front objective behind a wall because I knew that if the Raveners ran in, the Raveners are leadership 5, and they're probably going to fight last.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit of sneaky edge case tech that I had thought about. There are also armies that have a bunch of leadership 7 troops that charge in. Unfortunately, a lot of the things you're afraid of are leadership 8 and 9.
Yeah.
I did hard roll an 11 against some Scarabs during the tournament to make those Scarabs fight last against the Incubi. That felt pretty good. And then I have a Warlock Skyrunner with Protect Jinx. He honestly is an action monkey in most games, but there are very specific situations where you need Jinx because it makes the troops go to AP4. Against Armor of Contempt, that's a really big deal. It's the only way you can get to the invul on the Terminators in the Chaos Terminator brick. So it does matter. On those turns, I feeded a Fate Dice. The rest of the time, he's usually just doing psychic actions. He's on a bike so that he can do the psychic actions from wherever I need him to be without dying. Then in the fast attack slot, I've got 3 Skyweavers. You might do a double take on these because they have Shuriken Cannon and Star Bolas and not the Zephyr Glaives that make them good in combat. I played them with the Zephyr Glaives. I think Strength 5 AP2 2 damage doesn't do anything in the current game. It's very bad into Chaos Space Marines in particular. Anthony pointed out that the Bolas are crazy, and they are. The Bolas are Blast, D3, Strength 7, AP3, 2 damage. They just pick up Marines. They're incredible. So this is a gun unit that has pivoted from, in Billy's original list, as a thing that goes 22 and charges something and gets you behind enemy lines early, to a thing that I move around 16 and shoot the hell out of things and use it to help the Incarn move around the table.
Yeah, it kills a lot of trash. And I think that's a really valuable role when you can move fast and kill, like, somebody puts something on an objective in the backfield and you're like, no, you don't have this objective anymore. That's
the other thing about it is if that unit isn't mid-table, if it's on the edge of the table doing a job, it is really actually quite hard to kill. It is weirdly hard to kill. I've had a lot of games where they put a bunch of effort into it and 2 bikes die. And then that 3rd bike can fall back and shoot. He can wander around the back of the table, and when he falls back and shoots, he's got a Shuriken Cannon and the Bola. Like, he'll pick up a little unit of dudes standing on an objective. Like, it's a really good unit. I want 2 of them. There's no feasible way to put 2 of them in the army. I have considered making it a bigger unit, Billy.
Yeah, I have considered the same thing. The other thing, just to point out, when there's that 1 or 2 guys left, they're starting to hit on 2s as opposed to 3s, and that it's a 50% decrease in the amount of misses you get.
I've also Blade Stormed on it.
Well, that's interesting. That's greedy, but
it depends on what they're trying to do and how important it is.
That's fair.
I mean, Blade Storm is effectively 1 CP for +1 to hit.
Yeah, that's true.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
So, and then I do not have Shining Spears. So I played with the Shining Spears. I love Shining Spears. Shining Spears offer the list there's 2 problems. One is this list does not have Guide and Fortune and Doom, all of which are important to making Shining Spears function. Being Strength 6 with not very many attacks isn't great on a unit that needs to be able to take down heavy targets. AP4 is obviously great, but I found that the spears were often just flubbing. They were missing. They were not doing good. And then the real problem is that in the current game, being a 3-up, 5-up with 2 health is really bad. Everybody's geared to kill that, and so they just were dying, and they're too expensive. The point I made to Billy is the 5-man spear unit, as cool as it was the most expensive unit in the army by a wide margin.
Mm-hmm.
And when you play the most expensive unit, other than the Incarn, the most expensive non-Incarn unit in the army should feel like it's like when you're playing a list, the most expensive thing should feel like it's doing incredible work. What's the most expensive unit in your list, Chuck?
The 10 possessed with the black rune.
Yeah.
And you
They're holding down the
game,
center for turns like 2 and 3.
And every game you feel like they are great.
I'm thinking we're moving them along that same line. They are great, but not great enough.
Not great enough to be the most expensive thing. That makes sense. So I took the spears out and I tried Wind Riders because they're cheap and you can throw them around the board.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just talk about the Incarn for a second, and then I'll explain why this makes sense. I know it's taking a long time, but Incarn, this is more interesting than my games are going to be. So, okay, so the Incarn. Okay, here's what I'm going to do against you. I'm going to start by putting Rangers. This is why Billy why I don't take the Ranger secondary.
Sure.
I'm going to start by putting Rangers on objectives behind walls because we lots of player placed around here in the midfield. They're holding those objectives. Okay. If you would like to take those objectives, you have to go charge those Rangers because they are behind a wall. You are welcome to charge my Rangers because if you kill them, the Incarn on your turn will appear on that middle objective. Then the Incarn will go into your deployment zone. Okay. Remember, you came and charged my Rangers, so you have an enemy unit there. Okay. The Incarn's going to leave that enemy unit and go into your deployment zone. It's going to mortal wound to aura you. It's going to flamethrower you in a circle, 6-inch circle like this with its flamethrower. It's going to charge something and ignore invuls on it and wreck it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to charge that unit that is behind that wall where those Rangers were with a fight last. And the Incarn's going to do its punching. Then I'm going to shred that fight last. I'm going to shred that thing that's sending on that objective. And the Incarn's going to go right back to where it was behind a wall. Okay. That doesn't always happen, but that's the way the list is designed.
When it does, you lose an entire flank.
Yeah.
Like, you have sudden serious problems, and most people don't see it coming. Like, it took me 2 games to kind of get the rhythm of what this was.
Well, it does. The Incarn does more than the 260 points it costs in damage the first time it goes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've killed the Silent King with it. I've killed the Flyrant with all the buffs.
Mm-hmm.
I've killed he's fought Chaos Terminators. He's killed an entire unit of Retributors in one close combat because of his sweep being AP4.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how much damage Incar does, and then you can, by just using fight lasts to make sure that you can fight the Incarn first and the other thing second, you can then pull the Incarn from combat and teleport back across the table to safety. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I said that the Incarn can't be responsible for powers is because ideally at the beginning of my turn, the Incarn's in your deployment zone, and at the end of my turn, it's back in my deployment zone again. Which power coming out of CWE should I save my 4+? Well, if you're playing the Ynarri, it depends on if the Incarn is about to mortal wound pulse your army.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's probably 6's auto wound. Against Craft Old Eldar, it's Doom.
Yeah.
Both basically Doom and 6's to wound are covering the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
Eldar don't have strengths.
Yeah.
So they need something to solve that, and if you hit that causes problems.
Yep, that's right. So the final thing I've added to the list is actually 7 Swooping Hawks with the Feel No Pain. This is an incredible toolkit in the list. It doesn't kill things really at all. It was great against pink horrors, but it doesn't kill things really at all. But they have the Mortal Wound pack, which matters a lot. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about how built for Death Guard this list is when I play Death Guard. But it's got the Mortal Wound pack. It can fly around the board. But what's really neat about it is, remember, I want you to kill things, ideally in close combat, in your deployment zone so the Incarn can come in. The Hawks could come out, shoot something, then drop behind a wall on your extreme flank in your deployment zone. And your options are go kill them, summoning the Incarn to your deployment zone, which you don't want. Mm-hmm. Or leave them there, and the next turn they're going to R&D, or they're going to bomb and shoot something, or they're going to take an objective from you. Like, They are a 7 model 28 shot thing that drops mortal wounds on you as it flies over. Like, they are a real threat, and you're going to have to deal with them. And you can't just put chip damage into them because I gave them the feel no pain. It's because I had another Exarch relic that needed to go somewhere. So they are, you know, a 4-up, 3-up, 4-up, 4-up.
4-up.
Yeah, they're a 4-up, 5-up. They're not -1 to hit because I didn't spend the points on it, but they're a 4-up, 5-up with a 5-up feel no pain. They are weirdly hard to kill, and they are a fantastic tool for doing actions and a wonderful tool for bringing the Incarn where I need the Incarn to be. The final thing in the list is a mere 400 points of 6 D cannons. D cannons are my favorite thing in the book right now. They are indirect fire, but Rangers have a stratagem to make 1 unit of D cannons reroll hits against anything within 12 inches of them. And remember where the Rangers are standing in this game? Aggressively forward. Again, why the Rangers can't do the Ranger secondary the way I play the list. So 1 unit of D cannons is they're both going to hit on 4s if they're shooting indirect. 1 unit of D cannons is going to be rerolling. It is regularly fine to move the D cannons out and just aim them and get hit on 3s. It's often, there are a lot of lists that are like, where you're like, okay, here's 15 wounds of T5. Do you want to shoot that, or do you want to shoot all the Eldar running at you? If they shoot indirect, they might miss. Their blast D3 shot. So against a lot of stuff, 6 Scorpex, 6 Possessed, 10 Chaos Terminators. There's a lot of things where you just get 9 shots. Remember that Fate Dice can just make you hit. And then once you do hit, your strength 12, so you're wounding almost everything you're shooting on 2s, sometimes on 3s. And then your AP 4 down to AP 3 if you're shooting indirect. The sad thing there is that if a Chaos thing has a 2-up save, in cover, you're only giving it a 4-up, which feels bad. But it is what it is.
But it's a Chaos thing. You can come out and shoot direct.
Yeah. Right, because they don't have shooting.
So it's a 5-up.
Right, that's true.
Even 12 blast cannons isn't going to make enough of an impact on that squad to not do that.
And the other two things about the D cannons, and I know I'm taking forever, and it's fine. This is interesting. I love it. The other two things about the D cannons are they are a middle table threat that says, if you want to come at me, I'm going to shoot you with 6 D cannons, which is, remember, what Eldar is afraid of. As punchy as my army is, I still don't want Blood Angels to move their entire army to a ruin in the middle of the table and say, you have 1 turn to deal with this, and you can only punch me. I don't want that. The other thing that it does is that because the army is so fast and aggressive, as I'm pushing towards you, you're never making it to the D cannons. I have lost 1 D cannon in like 1 of like 12 games. Like I
touched one once. I touched it.
Yeah.
No shitty for you.
And Steve killed them, but like I also lost that game. So yeah, so the D cannons are the final piece. I actually think that the D cannons and removing the spears are the sauce that I brought to Billy's list.
Yep.
The Hawks are amazing. The Hawks are another great addition. And Billy, you were on the 1 Banshee train, but I'm solidly on the double Banshee train.
Yeah, the only functional difference between the lists as we're running them now is, and it's sizable, is that I add an additional troop squad and an additional ranger squad, and it's like -1 Banshee, 1 Incubi, and the points roughly balance out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to take the Incubi out. I love them, but I probably could find something else for 110 points. That's the obvious place to think about it. So, all right. So those are our lists. These are lists that Chuck and I love, and we will continue to be playing. I'm debating going to a major in 2 weeks. It doesn't have people to be a major, but they say it's going to be a major. So Chuck, do you want to start with your games?
Sure. Let's do my.
Do you want me to tell you about your opponents?
Yeah. What happened with the first person? Played Mike's Nids. This is a big lesson. This is actually a pretty good one.
All right. You said you played jovial and lovely Canadian Mike Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
And he was playing. He had some Leviathan Tyranids. He's got a unit of 3 Tyrant Guard, a unit of 3 Zone Thropes, a Broodlord, a Neurothrope, the Winged Hive Tyrant with the Obliterax, and then 10 Gargoyles, and then a unit of 6 Tyranid Warriors with a Venom Cannon, and then a unit of 3 with a Venom Cannon, a Death Leaper, who I love, Maleceptor, 3 Biovores. That might be 2 Biovores. 2 Biovores, excuse me.
It's 2, yeah.
And then 3 Carnifexes with heavy venom
stuff.
cannons. Yeah, that's that. Leviathan is the everything that has Synapse has transhuman is the most important note of this list. All the Tyranid warriors, as well as the Zoanthropes, the Neurothrope, and the Tyrant. Oh, and the not the Maleceptor, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. We played Recover the Relics, so we were long board away from each other. I set myself up for a trading game on the center objectives. I wanted to continually threaten the 2 that were near his deployment zone and make it so that he didn't feel comfortable coming at mine, so I could just win what I call the real estate war. I win primary because you never leave yours, and sometimes I take yours away. So I took Specimens of the Spider. Every unit of Tyranid warriors is going to be worth 2 points. Every monster's worth 3, plus the characters are worth some. Like they're going to just be points going to come out because I just count at the end of every turn. I get them, no big deal. Then I took Mental Interrogation. I hate taking Psychic Secondaries against Tyranids, but I didn't feel like he didn't have enough points to make no prisoners worthwhile. There wasn't really anything else. And then Banners is just an easy one for me. My battle plan is to keep him on his side. Then I can just Banners and be good, right? He took the first turn, did some sizable damage. I forgot that if you stand on top of a crater, you're seeable, right? Like that's the thing, but you're exposed, so you're not getting cover or anything from it either. So I gave up a couple of last cannons where I didn't need to. I could have started them behind it or hidden and then stepped up to get that line of fire. But for the most part, I didn't take very much damage from that. Oh, I should mention, I'm going to go through his secondaries real quick. He took no prisoners. No prisoners is just an auto take against me. I give up like 17 points of it before I start healing.
One thing about telling them about secondaries, we're going to make a point of talking about secondaries and why we took them in every game, because secondaries are actually the hardest thing in 40k right now for a lot.
It's also like I think the core skill for getting to win. You have to have a plan for secondary, primary, and it has to be reasonable. Yeah. He also took mental interrogation, psychic interrogation. I don't remember which one it is now. And then he took cranial feasting. All of my units have champions in them. I have combat characters. It's a reasonable time to cranial feast, I guess. I don't know. It's still not good. Just real quick on cranial feasting, he got 5 points. Every time he smited me, the champion dies. Every time he shoots at me, the champion dies.
That's smart.
He got 1 champion and 1 character. And that's it. So I was like, no, you don't get anything on that. It's too easy for me to not to dodge it. So on that first turn, he did a minimal amount of damage to me. I stepped out all my las cannons and shot at him. I think I put 3 damage on the Maleceptor. Like it's a waste of time. Not getting anywhere. But I did push forward, got out of my objective, got out of my deployment zone. I got my center objectives, and I created those ranges of threat. But I also pushed that 10-man unit of Possessed up into the Spore Mines that he dropped with the Biovore action, and I lost one of my Possessed. Oh, my poor dear. He died all the way until the Psychic phase when I brought him back and gained 4 inches worth of charge distance. Made his backfield, he made his objective and killed the Gargoyles and killed his it was just the Gargoyles, and I tried to wrap the little flying character. They fly, so it doesn't matter, but then he doesn't psychic me.
Neurothrope.
But what's important about that is that was a miscalculation on my part. This is probably the opening mistake that I regret the most. Going over there and killing him off of one of his objectives changes his score from an 8 on the primary to an 8 on the primary. It didn't do shit, but I exposed my big unit, right? I could have just not done this clever thing, hidden behind my objective, and waited for him to come closer. This would have been a much easier game for me if I hadn't done that to start. But like I said, I get too aggressive, and this list refunds me when I am too aggressive. So a bunch of his stuff charged into me and killed me. I killed a bunch of warriors in return, and I also petted a lot of Carnifexes. So when Possessed fight Carnifexes, they don't do any damage to them. They love them. They tell them how pure they are. They say they wish they could be you, and then they die. This is the story of the game from there. I keep shooting las cannons at Carnifexes. I keep getting in combat with Carnifexes. I can't kill them. My army doesn't do anything to that unit. I think I killed one by the end of the game, and then like did some damage to the other two.
The last cannon should kill them.
Last cannons are innately disappointing at every opportunity. I just
because the Carnifexes are they transhuman or no?
Yeah.
No. Oh, are
no,
they?
they're not. He gave them invuln saves. They all hit 4 invulns.
And they are -1 damage, right?
Yeah, so I'm hitting them on 3s, rerolling 1s. It's reasonable. I'm wounding them on 3s, reasonable, but still there's a little margin of error along the way. And then they're getting a 4-up invuln, and then I'm rolling a d6 for damage. And if I roll, and it's -1 from there still.
Yeah.
So it's like 3 or 4 last cannons have to get in through that matrix of 3s and 4-up invulns to then get enough damage on to kill it.
Yeah.
Right? So the Lord Discordant got caught out by Carnifex because I screwed up, and he killed me, and I killed him back.
Yeah.
No, I killed all but 1 wound, then I killed him later. Because he also just was horrible and didn't do nearly the amount of damage he would normally do to a target. But those Carnifexes really became the game. And as soon as that, we both sort of realized at the same time, and I was just like, oh, I'm all in on Carnifexes. And I fought around him. I had literally go around the Carnifexes to charge other things. I was shooting past them. I just stopped shooting last cannons at them because it wasn't getting anywhere. I just went for the obsec. At the end of the game, I ended up winning by a couple of points. I didn't actually total the scores here.
80 to 77, I think.
Yeah, it was like very, very close.
Yeah, 80 to 77.
And mostly because I think Cranial Feasting is just a giant pile of trash. If your opponent has heard this podcast and heard what I just said, you're never going to get anything out of it. It's really good against Thousand Sons, and that's about it, because they don't want to give up their sorcerers, which is their command units in the units. But otherwise, I don't just doesn't do anything. But yeah, just barely squeaked that one out. I think at the end of the game, I had my characters hiding in a ball, and the accursed cultists and 2 havocs left who were holding an objective. Like, I just was like, I'm barely alive. If he'd gone again, I'm utterly tabled, but it was enough. Right.
All right. Then you played Linton.
Yes. Oh,
Linton,
man.
Linton is
read
all
this
in
list
on
out with pride.
What's that?
Read this lit out with pride.
Oh.
It is a beautiful. From someone who enjoys the look of an army list, this is wonderful.
All right. So he's got this is a Space Wolf list.
Mm-hmm.
He has a librarian in Phobos armor. He has a Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf who's got a bunch of words after him that probably means I have the armor of Russ and I beat the crap out of anything that gets near me.
Punch really hard, fight last.
Yeah. Then 3 units of infiltrators. Those are the ones that can null deploy forward.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's got 2 units of Centurions with melta guns and hurricane bolters.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 altogether. And then 3 units of 10 Wolfen with Thunderhammer Storm Shield. 30 Wolfen.
Those guys fight on death.
They
and
sure
that's
do.
a pretty good rule.
Yeah.
I misunderstood this matchup. I thought Wolfen had 3 wounds each. So I was treating them very differently. Possessed are so good into them that if we play again, I will just be a massive bully with the Possessed, and it will be horrible for him. But I was actually kind of a coward in this game because I thought, I have to warm his units up with some last cannon fire before I go in there, or it's just not going to go well. So that's what I did. I battled up in my little corner and I shot at him, and I sent off a weird flank. I did this a lot actually. I sent the cultists, 1 unit of 5 possessed, and the Lord Discordant off to a flank when I castle everything else. That package allows me to get to an objective, clear it, and then continue out while leaving the cultists behind. And that the Lord Discordant and the Possessed create this zone where it's like very difficult to operate. You can't really shoot all the Possessed and then expect to do something to the Lord Discordant. And you can't go to an objective where the Lord Discordant can heroic you. So he creates this, he projects a decent amount of threat. He's also got a lot of speed. So that little package went out on the right flank, and the rest of my stuff huddled up and shot last cannons at him. And that went pretty well. On the first turn, I just skipped my psychic phase and didn't realize it till I was in his turn. I even did this very careful thing to move my prince so that he could mental interrogate the Wolf Lord, but just be at 25 inches from the. Like, I did all the work, and it was just like, nah, I don't want the points. I'll skip rolling the dice. Which is also important because Cursed Earth, we talked about, is a 12-inch aura of 4-up invulns to Demonkin, so Warp Talons and Possessed. And when you charge them, on a 2 through 4, you take a mortal wound, and on a 5 or 6, you take D3 mortal wounds. But it's during the charge phase, and it's not a melee attack, so it wouldn't trigger Fight on Death.
Right.
So my stuff is tabled up. I've got awkward interlaced possessed units, so that if you charge one, you charge both, and they like more fighting on death. If you charged into that and then taken like a D3 and a mortal wound, like that kills one, or if I get lucky, two of the guys before they come into fight, and that makes a massive difference in what I take. So I missed a lot of things in that first phase, which was a pretty big mistake, really. From there, it's mostly, let's talk about, my package is the same. No prisoners, specimen of the spider.
A lot of conversation about Chuck's package.
Yeah, well, it's important.
And it's how you use it, really.
Yeah. You got to be direct and aggressive.
Mm-hmm. That's what I've found.
The mental interrogation is great in this matchup because he has the one psyker. The problem is he only has 2 characters, so I have to, like, baby one of the characters, and he launches that Wolf Lord directly into me, and I kill it immediately. So it's like, I'm mentally interrogating your psyker, which is not the best place to be, but no prisoners. Obviously good. He's got all those wolf, and he's going to make me kill them. I think he had 10 points worth of no prisoners in the list that I took. But really, it's just this giant scrum. Turn 2, we did all this fighting. We both fight on death. And then when we're done, we look at the board, and he's like, okay, I got a couple squads over here. I got my the Centurions, and I got my Havocs, and a couple of different squads. Like, we looked like the end of the game at the end of turn 2. Everything died. A couple of clever fights here and there, and then he made a mistake where he charged his last 3 Wolfen into my 5-man unit of Space Marines, who's just sitting there doing holding an objective and casting spells. And he thought, oh, I'll kill you and I'll live. No. Legionnaires have 4 attacks apiece with chainswords. They blend almost anything that can make it that far into a table and attack them. Mm-hmm. So they died, but they didn't give him the objective when they went. Mm-hmm. So I think that all that came down, and at the very end, we both scored, I think it was 73 points each, or 74, something. It was right there. But we both tied. Frustrating for me knowing that
72.
72. I just boneheaded that first turn mental interrogation. Right? Like that could have been a win if I'd been a little bit more with it. But I'm common that way. I think I make a lot of mistakes, more mistakes in tournaments than in regular play, but I don't get too excited and too much fun to play Warhammer right.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Billy?
Yes, just because you're so focused. For me, I find I get so focused on, oh, that's a cool play, sort of like what Chuck was describing in game 1 of launching that giant possess. I see it, I'm like, well, I have to try this because it just seems so awesome. And then 3 phases later, you're like, oh, if I just set back, I table him next turn.
What about the battle plan I had? That would have been a better idea.
Right. Or no, to your point of secondaries, my favorite is I very carefully pick my secondaries, I write them down, and then in the hectic of setting up the table, the secondaries are out of my line of sight, and I just forget what they are for the first turn. I don't recommend that.
One of my new disciplines is making sure I understand my secondaries and my plan before we start doing the player place terrain.
Yeah.
And then I go, and every piece of terrain, I look at the secondaries. I'm doing banners. Put the banner building down.
I'm going to steal
the banner building.
I'm actually going to steal that because getting it in my head would win me some games that I otherwise lose.
Things like engage, making sure there's a line where somebody can run over here and be safe and get me engaged constantly. Right, that kind of stuff. Big deal.
All right. So you played against Drew Robertson, and he brought some Bloody Rose to play against you.
Mm-hmm.
Including the HQ, Ephrael Stern and Kyanil of the Bloody Tears, and the Triumph of St. Catherine, both of which are terrible, would be my guess.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, the Triumph is terrible.
Yes, but the other one is definitely not terrible. It's very much the opposite of that.
Okay. And then there's 2 units of 5 Battle Sisters, a unit of 10 Novitiates. Then he's got a unit of 10 Celestian Sacrosands. Those are the bodyguarding halberd guys.
Mhm.
Then a unit of 9 of them. Then a Dogmata, 2 Dogmatas. Then 2 units of 8 Repentia. He's got a unit of 5 Dominions, which are probably in a Rhino. Yeah, there's 2 Rhinos in the list. A 5 of Zephyrim, a 4 of Zephyrim. Or sorry, a 6 of Zephyrim and a 5 of Zephyrim. I hate how Battlescar does this.
Yeah.
A Castigator, Cassie, as we know her.
Mhm.
And then
not really. It's Battle Cannon Cassie, so slightly different.
Oh, that's not Cassie at all.
No.
That's the Cannon Gator or something. Canny. Maybe that's Canny.
It's Canny. It's Canty.
Or Connie. I don't know. And then he's got 2 units of Retributors, and I'm having a hard time figuring out how big they are. It looks like they only have 3
5s.
multi-meltas each.
It's 5s with 4 multi-meltas in.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No, it's 5s with 3 multi-meltas each. I promise.
Okay.
At least that's what it says on the list. And then 2 Rhinos. So Bloody Rose, which we've recently done a lot of work on. Chuck has a Bloody Rose list. He knows the army. Yeah. So how'd this go?
I was actually really excited to get this match because I have not played Into Sisters at all with the agents or with the creations of Bile, and I was very excited for this. We were playing conversion, so we're in our table quarters, and we want to own the secondary, the centers. I know Sisters are going to be doing their. They're going to pick an objective, and they're going to make that theirs. In that mission, there are 2 that are closer to, like the 3 down the center. 2 of them are closer to your deployment zone, so those are going to be the natural picks. I put my 10-man unit of Possessed in position and scheduled myself for the warp time, so that if
you like had to enter a ticket into the system.
Yeah,
if yourself on the schedule for it.
If I go first, and he picks either of the 2 that I think he should, for his to be his what is it called?
Defend the shrine.
To be his shrine, then I can warp time that unit and just encircle it with Possessed, and be like, great, you don't have anything that functionally damaged me with shooting, and you will have to charge this and kill it with enough to kill it, and then land something on it to hold it and survive, or I will take away your first turn shrine point. So that was all very clever on my thought, and then he went first. That didn't matter. I like his list. He's very interesting. He has the Bloody Rose Rhino, so you can take 1 Rhino and you can pregame move it 12. So he takes the Sacrosands, puts them in there, and launches them forward. The other Rhino has the I'm blanking on all the names. The fastest technicals, the Dominions, which lets it pregame move. And it also has 5 troops in there. So he comes forward, he launches the Sacrosands out and creates a shield wall. He brings in the and then everybody else goes over and jumps on the objective with his guys. So he immediately creates a defendable location by using the 2 Rhinos together. I thought that was really great. The shield ladies go into the Lord Discordant, who is safe from shooting, but I did not see this coming and was well within range for them to charge. He flames them on the way in, but they still manage to kill him to the exact wound. And then he kills them. This happens
Which
to
is
him
probably a fine trade, honestly.
Yeah, I would have preferred to have him for later. I think he was going to do really awful things on the shrine. Like he was going to be over there being like, I heroically intervene. Send 2 units now, right? And that was going to be fun. But like, this is great. The problem with all of this is that he left the Rhino over there. So now my Possessed move forward. They charge the Rhino. Get a wrap. I get some Warp Talons in there, and I put my Demon Prince next to it. So it's locked up entirely. And I'm right crest to a shrine. So I don't really threaten the shrine on turn 1, but I am right up on there, being like, you have to really defend now. In addition to that, I put 5 Possessed on the center objective. They're well within Repentia range. I know it's going to happen. Totally fine with it. He's going to charge me. We're both going to die. And I'm just going to, and I've got another 5 where there's like, we're ready to go when you're done. I move the Accursed Cultists out to the very far objective, nothing in his army shoots in a way that kills the accursed cultists.
No.
This unit is so frustrating to shoot at, because if he shoots the battle cane at me, he's definitely going to kill like 3 or 4 of those little cultists.
Right.
And the heavy bolter is going to do like 2 damage to a big guy and another accursed cultist, and then 3 more are going to pop back out, and then he shoots that again, and like 4 turns later they're dead.
It's like your favorite unit in the army.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I've got that. I've got my side. I'm contesting his shrine side with him, and I've got a plan for the center where we're just going to trade back and forth sort of uselessly. And I think that's all well and good. And he has to spend the 2 CP to pull the Rhino out of the trap, so that he can even shoot at me. Shooting at me still isn't good. Like Multi-Multi shooting into the possessed with the -1 to wound is still wounding me on 4s. It's like he kills some, but not enough to make a difference. I do get my 4-up invuln up, so it's even more bad. And then I rush that thing, and it's just a place for them to. I just kill. Nuts, just killing everything on that objective. And I trade again on the center, and then he runs out of resources. My momentum goes, and I'm like, now I'm in a deployment zone killing his things, and we're done. The big takeaway from this is sisters want to be the trade kings, and they just aren't anymore. I am. They can't trade with me. Every time they send a trade, I kill their trade in response, and sometimes they don't kill me. Particularly if I have the Cursed Earth up, so I get the 4-up invuln, and I have you take some random number of mortals on the way in. That hurts the sisters a lot. Their math gets all weird. So I don't know. I think it's a rough match in all ways for the sisters player. I think that shows in the score. If I remember correctly, I got down here 93 to 64. It's a pretty substantial lock-in. I do think there was a few points in his list in the Triumph that could be somewhere else, but I don't think it makes the difference in the matchup.
I don't think that sisters are actually good. Now, what I mean by that is, and Chuck and I were talking about this yesterday when we hung out, it's not that sisters aren't good. If you are an incredible player, sisters are good. They've got good secondaries, but I spent a weekend learning them. And I played them into some of their worst matchups, and I just lost over and over and over again. I lost more in one weekend than I've ever lost before. It takes an incredible amount of game knowledge and an incredible amount of patience and practice to make sisters work. I think they're actually one of the hardest armies to play right now. And so when Art of War says, no, they're still S tier or whatever, they're John Lennon on them? Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I am
top
not
rated a super major, absolutely top. They're high. They're very good. They're S tier then.
Yeah, for the one person that's good enough to play them, and everybody else is going to get trounced. I thought that they were very challenging and unforgiving. That's how I felt about them.
Yeah.
So
the power of them doesn't unlock until you reach perfection.
Yeah.
That I think also makes it probably really difficult to learn the army through repetition.
Yep.
Right? Like that's disappointing and difficult. So you have to really be dedicated, which is hilarious considering their fluff, but not necessarily the best player experience.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, I mean, so much of their power comes from their secondaries and what that forces their opponent to do into them. Like it can make them play a very uncomfortable game plan, which I think is similar to like what Necrons are doing. It's like, we're going to score all of our points immediately. Stop me. Against an army like yours, Chuck, that just wants to stop them anyway.
Yeah,
okay,
like,
twist my arm, I'll come and kill you.
Here I come.
Right? but like against an army that doesn't want to do that, it can just force an incredibly uncomfortable tension in the opponent.
Well, I think unfortunately the other army in the meta that doesn't want to do that is Necrons, and they get 3 more points.
Yeah.
So then they win.
Necrons just do it better and easier.
They don't deal with like I don't know, it's this whole thing.
Yeah.
But I think. Particularly, I want to just particularly for sisters players who are out there in the mid tables with us playing, don't feel bad that you're not making your S tier army win all the time. It's not straight S tier. It takes a lot of practice and skill to make that happen. So either stick with it or don't. No judgment here. I'm not playing them. That's too much.
Yeah, I don't like the type of 40K that is. I've done the math. And I'm going to score an 89, stop me. I don't actually like that. So I think that I'm not a good sisters player because I probably overextend.
Yeah.
Probably.
Right. Honestly, any extension is overextension. With Citrus, it's weird. Like, you should just stay in your bubble, score your points, and be like, if you come into my bubble, you die. Otherwise, whatever.
Yeah, it really, I found it very, very challenging. So
Yeah.
So you ended the first day 2 with a tie,
Mhm.
2 and a tie, pretty good.
Yeah.
And there were 3 other people who had tied. And well,
Yeah.
obviously the person that you had played. So you knew that the next morning you were either going to play Alex McDougall or Noah Badome.
And it was really interesting is Alex and I played a practice match, which we both learned quite a bit from. But we came away from it being like, I am particularly favored in our matchup, which is great because I need that gap to get me to where Alex is. But I think I have a pretty good chance. And Noah's list, I literally have 400 points on my list because I can't handle it. So I'm like, oh, please go my way.
Here's from viewer Samuel Martin. I've been playing Sisters lately, and they feel like a bear trap.
Like, because it's painful, but you can't quit?
Yeah, that's my guess.
Yeah.
His foot's caught in it. So you ended up with Noah.
No.
By the way, I believe you would have beaten Alex.
I think so. I learned a lot, but he's a he, so it's hard to say for sure. But
my wife is leaving for work. Bye, honey. Okay.
Good day.
A bunch of listeners say have a good day. And a Chuck. But not Billy because he doesn't.
I waved.
She can't see you.
Billy hates you.
Yeah.
No. Billy's never met you.
Billy hates no one.
That's true.
Well, no, that's
Stephanie,
not true.
for those that are wondering how involved Stephanie is with Charity Hammer, Stephanie hides. Yeah. Like, nobody interacts with Stephanie at Charity Hammer. We didn't even get her to come out when the puppy arrived. Like, she was like, I've met that puppy before. So
fair enough.
It's the most adorable puppy. Anyway.
I know, it's really unreasonable. Okay, so then you play Noah Badome, owner of the store. And he had a Knights list, which I hate trying to read. The first unit has 3 Helverins. One of them's got the Bastard's Helm, so that's a little bit mean. Heirlooms of the Household. Okay. So yeah, 3 Helverins, and then 3 Warglaves, and then another Warglaive, and then a Knight Errant with a bunch of words that I believe means move 40 inches and then charge. I don't know how far it actually is, but it's very far.
One of them is a 4-up invuln all the time.
That's the Knight Paladin.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the other one is geared up to do the Mortal Wound strat for free.
Okay.
And they hand out a bunch of free rolls and things I don't fully understand.
Okay.
But I trust Noah played them correctly, so it's fine.
Excellent. So that was the list. What was the mission?
It was a scouring.
Okay.
Normally one of my favorite missions with this list, but not into this matchup. In this matchup, I have to be actually kind of really passive until I clear enough Big Knight energy to go out and play. And so I don't like the scouring. Like, this is one of my least favorite matchups on one of the least favorite maps for it. So I'm not happy. It's not where I want to be. So I take Raise of Banners, bring it down to Psychic Interrogation. This is something I'd already planned. Raising the Banners is good because even if he does send a Helverin in to turn off a banner, then it's something I can reach and kill. Bring it down. Obviously, if I don't kill any of them, I'm not going to win anyway. And then Psychic Interrogation. They don't have Psychic Defense, and my Demon Prince is going to be useful in killing things later, but he can do that several times, and then the Master Interrogation or Master Possession can take over at the end of the game when his buffs are less important as the army spreads out. So that all works out fairly well. He takes the Oath, where they take an action at the center of the table and get points. He takes Yield ground, or don't yield ground or something. It's right. You can't go backwards. You can only move towards your enemy's deployment zone. And then, no prisoners, because everybody takes no prisoners because I give up so many. The course of this game is Noah goes first. He pops the Mortal Wound strat for just his indirect fire. And I tell you, when he did that, I was like, oh man, what is he doing? Well, don't interrupt your opponent when he's making a mistake. And then he kills 3 of the Havocs. And I'm like, oh, never mind. I see. Great. He did that, and then he moved one of the punchy war dogs right at me, and threatened to jump into the ruin and do some punching and shooting into the Gus. I mean, into the place where I put all the havocs. I have to respond to that guy. I can't let him do that. So I send the Lord Discordant out. He murders that guy, and then I move the Lord Discordant in between a couple of pieces of terrain and actually make a really powerful move block because he can't be walked over because he's not infantry. The knights can't go past him. So the big knights are kind of stuck, and I secure a safe space for me and my havocs for another turn. The havocs open up and shoot the big knight. They almost kill it, but they come a little short. Totally fine. That's I believe you would, Noah. I believe it. You're that mean. So what I've done is, I think that first turn was correct. It all worked out well. The second turn, Noah's like, "Oh, I see what's going to happen," and like a ton of it comes at me. I'm running out of places to hide. The 10-man possessed is kind of off on my flank, encouraging him to spread out his efforts. He wants to come for the havocs because that's a problem, but he also needs to go way over here and handle this. So we charge into each other. We do another round of like combats. The Helverins with the Imperial Knights giving -1 damage. Those are Carnifexes, and as previously discussed, I can't kill that. So I'm sending, I think, like a 6-man, like what's left of the 10-man possessed unit, and a 5-man possessed unit, and the Master of Possession. Cultists are shooting autocannons at them. I'm doing everything I can to try to chip anything off this guy, and it does finally work out. And then the squads can launch off into his deployment zone. So on the left flank, I'm doing great. On the right flank, big knights are killing everything, and I'm running out of havocs because he's getting an angle over here with the Helverins and killing off 3 or whatnot. So I send out a bunch of stuff. I'm going to take down both. I'm going to finish the other big knight, and I'm going to kill the other one with close combat because the prince does a pretty decent job. I swing. I do all of that. I don't get a very good charge on my warp talons, and then I can't wrap his center objective armiger, so he can fall back and shoot with that guy. That's huge. He falls back, shoots with him, gets on the objective, so he's continuing to get the objective. He's like preventing me from getting the primary board that turn. It makes a pretty big difference because now I'm very far behind on score, and my place force-wise is tentative in the game. On my turn, I follow up by killing everything he has on the left flank and grabbing his back objective and very defiantly raising a banner in his own deployment zone. That feels good. Whether it's worth it or not, it's great. But then I get back into that guy on the center objective, and when he dies, he comes back on a 4-up. Noah rolls that roll, and that guy comes back up on the objective. So my primary is just sunk. What I get total? I ended up getting 45, but I had to get a 15 on the last turn to get there. Right. And it also means that I'm not in combat with that guy anymore, so I'm shootable. He's still got a Helverin floating around who's just like, oh, I delete squads. This is what I do for a living. It really comes down to this back and forth. We're very close to each other. At the very end of the game, we have to count the no prisoner points very carefully because the final score is 90 to 86.
Oh, jeez.
I've never gotten one of these, I don't think, where you're both ridiculously high scores. I see some people do it. I just doesn't seem to happen the way I play. But that's the way that happened. And we look at that. If he had failed the 4-up on his knight coming back, I would have won by a point. It's just this the margin of error in our game is basically 0. It's total RNG at the very end, which is I think classic for Noah and I. We match very well at skill and army levels. But obviously, I would have preferred the 4-up gone in my favor.
Can I actually ask you a question there? How many points did you get on whether it's psychic or mental interrogation?
15? No, 6. That's right. I got 6 because I had to commit, and then the Master Possession failed.
Right
on the test.
Well, I get just because one of the things I go back and forth with is warp ritual versus psychic interrogation, and I would just love to hear your thoughts on
in
that.
The center.
And you didn't think you could?
Yeah, it's really dependent on whether. So if my battle plan includes me being on the center, I love the War Patrol because you're down 3 points, but like you're gonna fail elemental integration and one's gonna get denied, whatever. They're like the same amount of points, but for one less action,
Right.
or possibly 2 less actions. But in that game, I don't want to be in the center until I've done enough damage to big knights.
Okay.
So it would be very aggressive of me to say, yeah, I'm not going to do any War Patrol actions for the first 2 turns, and then I'm going to nail them for the next 3.
Okay.
And if you happen to kill my Psyker, that my game's over.
Right. You figured you had a sure shot at 3 psychic interrogations over the game to get you 9, then 3 War Patrols to get you 12. Okay.
The other part of this is there's a lot of curiosity in this matchup. We're looking at team tournaments, and I need to know, can I dead a knight player? Yeah. And in a team tournament, this is a success.
Right.
There were no points, and we got the knight player out of their pool. Like, that's fine. I would prefer to be 20-0ing somebody with, MSU infantry army, but this is also a job that can be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last cannons did the job. I'm still iffy on whether I should be dumping like 400 points into that, or if I should just be doing something else with it. Time will tell, I guess. It
would be nice if your book had more shooting options. Obliterators are really expensive.
No, so I've gone through. I played the Warlock Executioners, the Helvrins, with the Thousand Suns. I went through and compared those points for points with everything in the Chaos Space Marine book. Nothing even compares close, much less like being any something favorable. Like it's just disgusting. Every time you look at it, you're like, why is this so much worse? Right.
Can you put the Helvrins in without messing up some of the monofaction stuff?
You can.
So is that a direction?
Is definitely a list I have written several times.
Okay.
It does hit the CP, but the list does. I don't need CP to operate.
Yeah.
I don't need to interrupt. As a close armory is a very comfortable place to exist. In fact, usually interrupting is. That's not what I say usually. There are a few times where interrupting is important, and it's maybe once a game. The rest of the time, it's just a waste of CP. It's better to spend the -1 to be hit me or something like that instead.
So you're at 2 wins, a loss, and a tie.
Yeah.
And you
Classic
go in,
story.
And you go into Zach. Now, Zach YOLO'd at the last minute to Disciples of Be'lakor.
Yes.
And this is a list that Chuck popularized in our meta. Yeah. Like, so we know what this list does.
I taught Zach
how to play this
Be'lakor.
So his version has Be'lakor and the Epitome, obviously. Then he's got 30 pink horrors, 3 Nurglings, a Dark Apostle with his buds, 10 cultists, 5 raptors, and 8 warp talons. End of list. Because there is 596 points of reinforcement points. Because the pink horror unit is going to become 150 models, right? Yeah.
There's this very clever thing that's in that list there, where the warp talons can be given the psychic power Wreathed in Shade, and they can't be shot unless they're the closest model or within 12 inches. So the pink horrors are basically everywhere, and they end up enveloping your army. And then you take casualties in such a way that you leave a hole where the warp talons can go. You cast that power on them, they run in, and they're just killing individual units within the sea of pinks, right?
So the pinks become blues when they die, the blues become brimstones when they die, and all of that gets placed in these serpentine tentacles out. The whole thing's OBSEC, and so it takes over every objective, and you get no points. And if you can't kill that big unit, you lose. And if you can kill that big unit quickly, you win. That's the list. So Chuck, were you able to kill the big unit quickly?
I placed everything I had on the line, and I ran at it, and that unit was dead basically at the end of 2. There was a couple of them left on 3. Yeah. My models have 5 attacks at like the minimum. The Accursed Cultist Squad. It just goes ham into that thing. So right. I've been waiting to kill these. But I think the real death knell was he spun out a tendril to grab my my home objective, and my Havocs charged it. Those guys are 3 attacks apiece, and the sergeant's got 4 with a chainsword. Surprise!
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, I have a breadth of attacks.
I think
it's the reason I'm good into Eldar as well. It's just like even if you go after my weakest unit, here's 17 tax in return.
I have played against Possessed like 5 times now, and I don't know what they actually do in combat. Because I have never had them swing at me and not been obliterated.
Yeah.
So I don't know what strength they are. I don't know what AP they have. I don't know what damage they do. None of that seems relevant because it seems like whatever they touch just dies.
Here's the really relevant part. Possessed are normally strength 5.
Mm-hmm.
Being Bile, I'm strength 6. So I'm wounding you most of the time on 2s. And that makes
I don't care for that.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference in my output on you. But yeah, this game is... we appreciated it because it's probably the last time the Bellicor list we played. And it's probably the 2 players in the meta in our meta that know the most about it. So we got to be like, oh, we're like trying to be all clever and play, but like, there's no way around. Just like, I have savage brutality that he just can't handle.
Also, his couple of close combat things go in and hit one of your things and then die.
Yeah. Oh, and I also got Bellicor out where he came out and killed something, and then I got out of there so I could shoot him for once. And last cannons are actually pretty good at shooting Bellicor. That's like the one target they are.
So you got him 88 to 71, which
Yeah.
is actually quite good because he makes it very hard to score points.
Yeah. He's still got a 38 on the primary because he went 12, 12, 4, 4. Because I left him in his back corner. Because whatever.
So in the end, you got 3 wins, a loss, and a tie, which is decidedly better than the 3 and 2 that you often get.
It's actually what I got in my last GG2, so I've considered that's my new normal.
Okay.
It's going to be hard to keep up because ties are hard, but...
Right? So we'll come back and talk about your list after we talk about my games, I think. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So now we get to talk about Ynarri, Billy. You've been very patient.
I've been loving the Bile stuff. I mean, I said when I was doing the Ynarri list, when I handed it to you, test this, and then in the back of my head, if it didn't work, I'm just switching to Chaos Space Marines because I love punch people.
They work too.
Do you have Chaos Space Marines, Billy?
I could literally put Chuck's army on the table when I got home.
Oh, what armies do you own? I've only ever seen you play Eldar.
So I was Eldar for a long time in 8th, and then they killed Ynarri completely dead, and I didn't like the more gunline version. And that's right when the Lord Discordant model came out, and I was just like, oh, I could put 3 of those and Morty and the Knight in the list. It was.
Would you like a cowboy riding a scorpion, but it's all robots?
that just detonates whatever it touches. So I played that for a while. And then I realized that GW loves Loyalist Space Marines, and it's just useful to have that collection because occasionally they become amazing. So,
if they're generic enough, they're going to be amazing at least to some degree.
You can find it, and then because
you can pick what color they are, and suddenly
and mine are their own special color that have been a bunch of different things. Yes,
people have told me that that's a pro tip we've given them. I don't know why people haven't paint your Space Marine in a custom color.
Yeah.
So a custom color scheme so that you can say they're whatever army you want at the table. It's not, this is not, I don't know why I have to explain this.
That's how my chaos is done. They've been basically every sub-faction.
Yeah.
And then I have some Chaos Demons because the most busted book GW has ever created in any system is the 7th edition Warhammer Fantasy Chaos Demon Army. And I have a bunch of little metal crab keeper of secrets because, boy.
Oh, man.
Yeah, if we ever need to kill time at some other episode, we'll do story time on that particular army.
I have a box in my garage of metal Chaos Demon and Tyrannid models from 25 years ago. It's great. The Carnifexes are the Carnifexes are like
little
this
screamer
big.
killer. Yeah, with the 4 blade arms.
Yeah,
I love those models. They're really hard to put together.
Yeah. They're also a dangerous weapon if you ever get angry.
Some of the models look like they're a large thing from Epic rather than a small thing from 40K.
Yeah.
So, anywho, a friend of Chuck and mine from when we were teenagers, at least I was a teenager, a friend of ours stopped playing 40K, moved away. He messages me and says, go get my 40K out of my dad's garage and you can have all of it. And I'm like, okay. So I go out there and I grab it all, and it's all trash. There's nothing in there of any value. So now it lives at my house rather than living in his father's garage.
You should point it out to me next time over. I'll sift through it. And
yeah, it's a lot of metal. It's Chris Steen's metal Tyrannids and Chaos. So it's It's not great. We did find a unit of Vince's flamers in it that we sent home to him.
Yep.
We
hid
found a
those around
unit
his
of
house.
Vince's, like you went and surprised him with them, which was great.
I returned them one at a time in secret because it's Siege. You got to do it that way.
All right. So, someone says, "Yeah, go Chuck." Yeah, go Chuck.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Johnny.
All right. So now we're going to talk about Ynarri, and I'll try not to get too excited. This is the most fun I've had in a very long time. Chuck commented while watching me play the list that it has to be my list now.
Yeah.
Like this.
It has the right amount of intricacy and destroying.
Yeah, it's way too much Colin to not be the thing to do. So I get to the tournament, and I'm going to tell a little bit of story about this guy, Matt Core, who I met in the first round, because Matt is one of my favorite opponents ever. Matt walks up to me and says, I haven't played the Nephilim rules. I said, okay. He said, I haven't played Necrons in a year. Okay. I haven't played a competitive game of 40K in 6 months. Okay. And then he says, also, I don't know what your army does, and I like it that way. I enjoy the fog of war of everything being a surprise.
Oh, dear God.
He said, I am here to take cool cinematic pictures with my camera of the game, roll dice, and have a great time.
Cheers to you, Matt Core.
And he is, first of all, his army is gorgeous. And he has LEDs. It's kit bashed really like cool. Crazy. You, I'm sure you looked at it, Chuck. It was great. I think he got 3rd place for best painted.
I don't know, but yeah, I love looking at it. It was fun. I love looking at people, like what people make
that are in love with their army. Yeah. It had LEDs on it. Like it was so flippin' cool. But here I am with one of the hardest to understand armies in the game, and my opponent does not want to know how it works.
Yeah.
And so I said, my army is very tricky. Can I at least give you the broad strokes? He said, yes, but don't be too specific.
Okay. My pregame pattern for Ynarri takes like 10 or 15 minutes.
I know, Billy. I know.
What I'm going to say here is his last name is Core, right? So, like, he basically hasn't been playing until GW said Necrons are core.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay, I'm in.
Right.
But doesn't want to, like, he's brand new, essentially, because that's too much change.
Yeah, so he is playing a battalion of Necrons, and they are the ones. They are the pregame move. Everybody's OBSEC. And he had 2 Chronomancers with Entropic Lances. He had an Overlord that is Thrall of the Silent King. I don't know what that does. Then he has a Technomancer, 2 Technomancers.
Auras.
Oh, okay. 2 units of 5 Immortals, 2 units of 20 Necron Warriors. That is really interesting because people are not at all geared to deal with that anymore. People are taking heavy, high-grade shooting and 20 Necron Warriors. I actually saw that and I thought, oh, there are only specific things in my army that can even charge that.
Yeah.
I should be aware of this.
Be very careful with your Harlequins. It's very important that they land where they need to land. Yeah.
And I thought that the reanimating on 5s, rerolling 1s felt like everybody comes back. Like I really did. And then he had a Stalker, Track Stalker, 3 units of 6 Scarabs to take objectives, and then 3 Doomsday Arcs, which I was excited about because that's the Jovial Canadian saying hi.
Oh,
I believe that I believe that was your first opponent. Didn't I call him the Jovial Canadian?
Mike, yeah.
Hi, Mike. So Doomsday Arcs aren't good. And that unfortunately for Doomsday Arcs, they have the very Necron problem of I'm going to roll a random number of shots, and then I'm going to roll to hit without rerolls, and then I'm going to roll to wound without rerolls, and if I move, my gun's not as good. That is a series of bad, and he doesn't have the Silent King, because as he explained to me, he thinks the model is dumb.
This is the first thing I've heard from Matt that I don't agree with or enjoy.
Yeah.
I think this, and so it caused me pause because everybody loves the Silent King, and so I then had to make an opinion about what I hadn't thought about whether I like the Silent King model or not. And what I realized is that when I think about the Silent King, I can't picture what it actually looks like. It is a mess of design that is usually not painted well when I play against it. it is just, it's very hard for me to visually make out what's happening on it compared to other big models like Magnus or Bellicor or Mortarion. So I would be critical of the Silent King that it is a lot happening on that model. So it is a little bit hard to, it's a little bit like the kill rig. There's so much going on it, but in the kill rig, it's orky. So I love it. So I think I'm fine with him not liking the Silent King because I think it is I don't think it's my favorite. So that's what I say. Very fun to play with. I learned yesterday when I played as Necrons.
Yeah.
So, all right. So this is a very interesting game. I can't remember what mission we're on the first one.
Recover the relics. So
yeah, recover the
hammer
relics.
Anvil, 3 on your side.
So
3 on theirs.
He takes ancient machines, purge the vermin and treasures because he's playing Necrons.
And
he knew that he was taking those 3. And what I have to say about Matt is he knew his rules incredibly well to the point where he was pointing out things that other Necron players get wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Matt did some homework, and he played very well into me, considering he did not want to understand what my army does. So he went first, and he ran up the Necron warriors basically right into my face. Took all my objectives. I took Psychic Interrogation, Banners, and Engage. And because he came up and took all my objectives with Necron warriors on the first, and Scarabs on the first turn of the game, Banners was a real problem for me.
Yeah.
So suddenly all these Necron warriors are in front of me. I respond with whiffing every D-cannon shot. The D-cannon shots shoot at the Doomsday Arcs. One of the Doomsday Arcs says, I'm going to have a 4-up. I'm going to be 4-up invul transhuman. You know, that'll be fine. Nothing to him. The other one simply whiffs. I move up my troops so that each troop unit can charge a unit of 20 Necron warriors. I buff the troop units. I have a unit of Banshees ready to go in with one. The Autarchs ready to go into the other. I am ready to fight last and shred some Necron warriors. My bikes and another unit of Banshees run up the side of the table and take the objective on his side that is closest to me, which is one of his 3 one of his 3 treasures objectives. And I go up and I kill all the Scarabs off of it, and then I pile my bikes into his Doomsday Arc, thinking, shoot me. You have to shoot me. Not realizing that he has army-wide fall back and shoot turned on. Sorry. Necrons have a lot of rules. Only some of them are good, and I didn't know which ones he was using. So the problem here was that the Harlequin unit that was going to charge the slightly farther away Necron warrior unit could not make a 6-inch charge despite having a reroll. And so one unit of troops went out, all buffed. They had 6's auto wound. They had extra AP. There was no invul in that Necron warrior unit. They were ready. And then they just didn't go and got shot off the table. So the rest of my close combat, actually, I'm sorry, I got this slightly wrong. One Harlequin troop unit stayed behind the wall in front of the D-cannons in case I couldn't deal with the Necron warriors. I was worried that they would charge through the wall at the D-cannons and wrap them up. And I didn't want that. And if they charge into the wall, then they touch the troops. The Necron warriors aren't going to kill all the troops. The troops will then shred on the Necron warriors. So I charged Incubi and Banshees into one unit, and I charged I failed at charging troops and the Autarch into the other unit. And I shredded everything off the objective far away. I whooped that 20-man Necron warrior unit down to like 6 dudes. So fine, and then did nothing to the other 20-man Necron warrior unit. His response was to kill large amounts of elves, but the Doomsday Arcs did nothing. They just didn't do anything. A bunch of my
one of their 2 settings. Nothing, or they do nothing, or they obliterate something.
Because I was playing fast-moving elves, he had to move around to get shots on me, so he was shooting the less good profile.
And it just never is nothing.
He couldn't see the D-cannons, right? So he's shooting at elves that are often minuses to be hit. I used Olafar on the troop unit, and he ended up putting basically all of his shooting to kill that 10-man troop unit that was staying out in the open. And so that unit was dead, sure, but now he's close to me, and the Incarn discovers that the Harlequin bikes have died, or no, the Banshees have died across the table. So the Incarn goes across the table, punks and kills a Doomsday Arc, and then teleports on my next turn, and then teleports back to my side of the table when I kill off the Necron warrior unit.
How did the teleporting go when your opponent doesn't know it exists?
I told him it existed.
Okay, because that seems incredibly powerful. It's hard enough when I know it exists.
Turn that he was multi-charging my army with Necron warriors. Yeah. I was more concerned about that. And I'm like, hey, you can't multi-charge. Okay, fine. I'd rather be surprised. Okay.
You're going to be surprised.
So the Incarn punked a Doomsday Arc, came back to my side of the table, went back to his side of the table, punked a Doomsday Arc. The Hawks actually were amazing because they shot something and then jumped up and landed at a forest in the back corner of his table. And he would try to shoot at them, but they were just too obnoxious to kill. Mm-hmm. And so they just sat back there and got engaged until the Incarn fell short on killing a Doomsday Arc, and I needed them to drop grenade packs on the Doomsday Arc because they flew over it. So in the end, it was very much he pressured me hard and I got worried. And then I just counterpunched with how hard Ynarri hits. And by the way, on the second turn, I said, I'm tired of whiffing, and the D-cannons just wandered out into the open and started shooting things. Mm-hmm. Because I thought if the Doomsday Arcs want to shoot the D-cannons, it's the Incarn and the infantry that are going to kill him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically ignored shooting the Incarn entirely. And so the Incarn just wandered around the table killing everything. The other amusing thing is because my Autarch charged into Necron warriors and killed like 3 of them, and then the Necron warriors just ditched him and left. The Autarch got charged by all 4 of the on-foot Necron characters, the Overlord and both Chronomancers and a Technomancer, and he got trapped by them. And the first turn he killed one of them, and then the next turn he killed another one of them, and then the next turn he killed another one, and he just sat there. Boom, you died. Boom, you died. And one of the turns I gave him LFR. Like, it was great. He was not going to die.
That's awesome.
3 of those characters don't, like, 3 of those characters have 1 attack each.
Yeah. I had 6 fate. I had fate die 6s for saved up because I presumed he was going to shoot the Doomsday Arc at the Incarn, but then he never did. And so I kept using them to keep the Autarch alive in this never-ending close combat. And eventually one of those characters ran away, and the Autarch went and got him, and then he teleported the Incarn there. It was great fun. In the end, I maxed Psychic Interrogation because I refused to kill one of the Chronomancers. I just let it wander around the table. I got a 15 on banners because as I was killing him, I started putting banners out, and on the final turns, it was like I got 5 on turn 5.
Yeah.
So I love how banners can either be I'm going to stay over here and force you to come to me, or I think I'm going to kill you by turn 3 so I can get all these points after you're dead. Like, I like that has 2 different modes.
Right. And I took Engage in this game because Necrons aren't that fast, and that was really good. He failed at killing the Harlequin bikes, and the one Harlequin bike was alive for like 3 turns at getting Engage.
Also,
and then
hitting his Purge.
Right. And the Hawks as well. The Hawks, like I said, when it's basically hung out in the corner of the table. So I maxed Engage for most of the turns, and his Purge was 2-1-0-1. He got 4 points on Purge.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
Can I jump in?
What?
Jump in there, Colin, and just ask you, because the way you described where those bikes and the Hawks were, I know you've said you have a hard time with behind enemy lines. Wouldn't behind enemy lines have also just worked there?
In this game, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in this game.
Which is actually, I would say, counterintuitive. Oh, no, this would be fine because that's a pretty big deployment and deep deployment zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think where it gets really awkward is in the when you're doing table quarters.
Sure, that one's a tiny and tight.
Your army's like, I have trouble getting my whole army in the space. How are you get your unit in there?
The board is already set up for engaged quarters. Like it logically flows into that kind of a game style.
Yeah. Looking at the game and anticipating what is going to happen to enough to know if I can do behind enemy lines. I played several games with behind enemy lines where my opponent came at me and there was then no opportunity to do it.
Fair enough.
So I don't know. Anywho, he got a 12 on Ancient Machines, but we actually cheated. I let him score 2 Ancient Machines on the same turn, which I thought was totally how that mission is played. It is not. So it's actually 4 points less. He got a 4 on Purge, and he got a 7 on Treasure. So basically, he said, I'm going to take the board and hold it from you. And I said, I'm going to come at you aggressively and kill all of your things. And that's that game. Yep. By the way, the story of Matt Core is funny because after playing me, the other most accomplished tournament players at the event are Alex McDougall, Zach Nelson, and Steve Trimble. Matt got we had an odd number of undefeateds, are of winners in the first round, and Alex got paired down into Matt. So Matt's second round was playing Alex McDougall. And then Zach, I think, lost a game, and so his third round was playing Zach. So he went 0-3 on the first day, playing 3 of the 4 most accomplished tournament players at the event. Sorry, Matt, but you're wonderful and we love you. Next up, I played Steve. So Steve and I have played a lot. We've gone back and forth. Steve is a really good player. Steve plays a very aggressive playset, so we know what he's going to do. Steve's list was 60 Plague Marines, Abaddon, couple casters, and 1 spawn. That's the list. Each unit of Plague...
I'm going to read through... all the Plague Marine units are kitted out the same, but I'm going to read through what they got.
Okay.
For you. The best way to like. Champion has Plasma Gun and Power Fist. Then he's got 2 Blight Launchers, 2 Cleavers, 2 Flails, 1 guy with a Mace and an Axe, and then 2 Melt-A-Guns. I talked to him afterwards, and he would strongly consider swapping the Plasma Gun for Melta and just getting rid of the Cleaver. Or sorry, not the Cleaver, the Mace and Axe. For something else. But those units have a little bit of shoot, enough to like interact, but their punch is
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So this is a very hard matchup for Eldar. Just let's get that out there. And we were playing on Dawn of War, which I did not want. No. And we played on Dawn of War in a way that I couldn't actually hide. I could not hide. So it was Dawn of War with the weird objectives.
It's Dawn of War with 6 objectives.
Yeah.
The one that goes at an angle, which is like heaven for Death Guard. They're like, oh,
I could not hold objectives.
Right.
There was
and it's
not,
a hold
that was
2,
not a
hold
thing.
3.
What?
Yeah.
It's also a hold 2, hold 3.
We didn't play it that way, but yes, it is.
Well, okay.
We realized that after the game. So for the purposes of this game, it was hold 1, hold 2. I would have lost by more.
Yeah.
So this was brutal. I actually tried to explain to Steve that the train, also player place train at the store was a little bit chaotic and crazy. And in this one, Steve got to put the first piece of train out. It was roughly this big. Imagine, I wear size 14s. Imagine what my shoebox looks like. It was that big, and it was a ruin, and he put it in the middle of the table and got to start his army basically walking into it. It was a lot bad. But basically, here's how this matchup works. He puts the Foul Blight spawn in the middle of his army, and his army walks towards me. And I can't charge it because they hit way too flippin' hard. So I have to kill the Foul Blight spawn. That is the entirety of the game. If I kill the Foul Blight spawn and charge him with my army and all of my fight lasts, I win. That's the game. Unfortunately, I forgot that. So I deployed my army, and I ran out. I actually went first. No, he went first, and he moved forward. And I actually ran a Harlequin troop unit off to the side because he had 10 Plague Marines standing on an objective by themselves. So I sent the Harlequin bikes over there to shoot that unit, and then I sent 10 Harlequin troops over there but not with enough buffs to try to kill that unit. That was a disaster. That wasn't anywhere near enough to kill that unit, and I ended up just trading with him, and there was never a good place for the Incarn to go. That was just wrong, okay? The D cannons were great. They were just daka the whole game, killing Plague Marines. Wonderful. I also sent a unit of Banshees way off to the other extreme edge to charge in to a unit that got shot by D cannons. I actually managed to take that unit down to like 3 dudes. So that was great. And so really I diffused the sides enough that it was really about the coming towards. I, on my first turn, moved the Hawks out, shot him, and then put them in the corner of the table to get engaged. Because, I took no prisoners, obviously. I took engage, which was horribly wrong, and I took psychic interrogation. He took flexing vectors, spread the sickness, and spoiled something.
I don't know. Package. Survive the game and be near the objectives and in table quarters and get crap tons of points.
Yeah, it's so many points. That was completely wrong that I used the Hawks that way. The Hawks were supposed to stand behind a wall at the front of my deployment zone until the second turn when they needed to use an auto 6 on advance, fly over the Foul Blight spawn and drop grenades on his head. Mm-hmm. Steve did not know I had that. He was not screened against that. He did not have enough models around the Foul Blight spawn to stop me from doing that. Doe. Easily the game-losing mistake I made.
But
I
you
also
also
moved
have
the
rangers and targeted psychics, right?
Yes.
Like,
I
there's a
actually
lot.
don't really have targeted psychics because the only targeted psychic power I have is likely to do 1 mortal wound to the Foulblight Spawn.
Yeah. If that goes from 3 to 4, it's a great mortal wound.
Well, so here's what I ended up happening. On the first turn, I moved the Rangers out and moved them back as far as I could and shot hoping to do any damage to the Foul Blight Spawn. That was a mistake because I didn't have Fate Dice to support that turn.
Mm-hmm.
And he picked up one of the Ranger units with like supplemental shooting. And so I only had 1 Ranger unit on the go turn where I needed to kill the Foul Blight Spawn. The Incarn moved up. Psychic pulsed. Didn't do any damage to the Foul Blight Spawn. I don't remember exactly how much damage all of this did, but the way it ended up is that at the end of my psychic phase, I had a ranger unit that needed to do 2 damage to the Foul Blight Spawn or I lose the game with no Fate Dice to support me. I do 1 mortal, I spend 2 CP rerolling wounds because I have an Autarch, I get to do 2 per phase, trying to fish for that mother effing 6, and I cannot get it. So the Foul Blight Spawn has 1 wound left. I then point the D-cannons at the relic grenade Foul Blight Spawn unit or Plague Marine unit, and I jinx them. And I get 9 shots, 9 hits, 9 wounds. With jinx, he gets no saves. That unit's gone. There's 1 guy left. Because of that, I can now charge the Foul Blight Spawn without charging the units around the Foul Blight Spawn. And so I have this really clever plan where the Autarch charges the Foul Blight Spawn to make it fight last. And then I charge the troops in, and I touch the Foul Blight Spawn, and I'm 1.5 inches from a unit of a buffed unit of troops, and I'm 1.5 inches from a unit of Plague Marines. I've not charged now, but I still get to activate because I'm in combat with the Foul Blight Spawn.
Right.
Who I fight lasted. And I have to go first. I don't remember why. Oh, and then he fight lasted the troops.
Right.
So now the Autarch has to go first, and the Autarch kills the Foul Blight Spawn. The troops have not charged and now do not get to activate. He has not charged. He does not get to activate. My troops do not get to fight. They just stand there and get shot off the table. That was also a mistake. Here's how I undo that. All I have to do is charge the Foul Blight Spawn with just the troops. Fight lasting the Foul Blight Spawn does not matter. It's not going to kill very many Harlequins. So if I had charged it, he fight lasts me. But he has no way of activating the Plague Marines because they've not been touched. Then I pile 9 of them into the Plague Marines, buff them up, I wipe that unit and have the 1 guy kill the last wound on the Foul Blight Spawn. I do mortals on 6s to wound. 1 CP. I had auto wounding on 6s. I had enough CP for 3 damage. I then pick up that unit and I win the game.
So you get a better result and you still have your Autarch for later.
Yeah, and by the way, that was literally just a misplay, not a die roll thing. So if I don't go to the extremes with my resources on the first turn, if I plan for the Foul Blight Spawn better, or if I just don't mess up that charge, I think I win this game. I feel really good about that. Steve's a great opponent. Like, we had a wonderful game. He wrecked me hard because the problem is his secondaries are so much better than mine that while I scored a 58, he scored 100. And the only way I stop that is by tabling him on that second turn when I go. And I know that. I know when I have to go, and I had to go. Steve saw me spending 2 CP to reroll the 6s and laughed. And I said, Steve, if this doesn't work, I've lost. It's turn 2. I don't care. This is the entire game. So if I play that list again, I'm really confident that I can beat it. I think the Ynarri is actually a better mission also would have helped me a lot. I think that the Ynarri with the D-cannons is a really bad problem for that list.
One thing I just want to point out in there, Colin, specifically the 3 damage on the troops, you need to do that in your charge phase. It's worded weird. Okay, just because you have to pick it. You have to pick it before a time when you would ideally.
I have to pick it before he spends the -1 damage strat. Is the important of the nuance.
Yes.
So that means that he's just a -1 damage.
But against like Tyranids where it matters, it's an inconvenient timing choice.
Right. I did use it that way.
Okay.
Okay, so Lots could have gone differently in that game, but I do lose it. Also, Engage felt awful. Engage was the completely wrong choice. Assassinate was the right choice. Because that Death Guard list has a bunch of characters, they're all running at me. So
and it's part of your plan to kill him in order to win.
I have to kill the Foul Blight spawn, so I'm at least going to get 3 points, right? So I only got a 6 on Engage, or 5. I only got a 5 on Engage. I got a 12 on No Prisoners. I only got a 9 on Psychic Interrogation because all my Psychers died on the 3rd turn. Because on the turn that I went, it didn't work, and my army got killed from that. Also, I had a unit where I had a turn where I shot 3 D-cannons at Abaddon with 2 wounds left, and it didn't kill him. That was very upsetting. I was not...
Perfectly reasonable.
That was not a thing I enjoyed. So now I'm 1-1, and I go into play Paul Winters. Do you want to read Paul's list?
Yeah. Okay. So Paul is playing Emperor's Children.
Yes.
Let's go through here real quick. Let me scroll
Which
to the
I'm
bottom.
terrified of, because at Charity Hammer, Anthony went through me like a hot knife through butter. Playing Eldar.
So let's start with this first attachment. The Supreme Command of Black Legion 1 Abaddon. Abaddon loves to hang out with the Emperor's Children. So from here, he's got his HQ. He's got a Dark Apostle. He's bringing the Illusory Supplication. This is the Trans Hitman. He's also bringing a Lord Discordant. He's got the Bale Flamer and the Mantle of Traitors. This allows him to, once per game, do an Epic Deed strat for free. Mostly that's the Fight Last off the Emperor's Children. It can also be used for -1 damage, but the Fight Last is more than going to be a thing. But it gives him rerolls to hit. And when you're rolling 2s to hit, you're going to at least miss twice. So great to have. And then I'm assuming I'm missing it here. Yep, there it is. Flames of Spite. They reroll the wound and 6s are mortals. It's a great package for that model. And then lastly, he's got Lucius. Lucius is a Chaos Lord who has an inbuilt Fight Last. And a really good Flamer. So he's great. A mob of 10 cultists. And then he's got 3 units of the Noise Marines. Each of those has 1 Blastmaster and 4 Sonic Blasters. No close combo weapon upgrade.
Interesting.
And then we have Terminators. I'm going to guess it's 10, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, 10. It's kitted out with all the Power Fists and 1 Chain Fist, or 2 Chain Fists, 6 Power Fists, and 1 Combi Melta. 3 units of 5 Possessed, and that's list because then we go into Abaddon. This is Anthony's current list, I think, to the point.
No, Anthony likes the close combat Noise Marines.
Oh, right. He upgrades the Noise Marines to close combat. I'm sure this is probably a matter of modeling.
Yeah.
For him.
So I'm very scared of this list, but I've also thought about this list a ton while building this Ynarri list. I believe I've talked about this list more than any other matchup for my list. So it is conversion. So we're table quarters, and I set up my terrain so that I can hold. So I've got my corner, and then there's the one objective that's closer to me. And I've set it up so that I can start Rangers behind a wall on that objective and start Rangers behind a wall on the other objective. And my idea here is that if he comes and charges those, the Incarn then goes in first turn into him. Because he's a fast-moving close combat army, he'll also be into me, and I can bring the Incarn back. I can do the whole Incarn combo. The Incarn is devastating Emperor's Children. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Unfortunately for me, I also chose R&D as a secondary. I took Psychic Interrogation, no prisoners in R&D. Psychic Interrogation, absolutely correct. You don't have to do it on Abaddon. I know Abaddon has a deny. You don't want to stand in the middle of the table against them. So Psychic Interrogation, no prisoners, obviously. They give up a lot. They give up 13 if you table them. Ask me how I know. He took Adorn the Canvas,
Eclectic?
which is what?
Adorn the Canvas Eclectic.
Yeah, and what is that?
It's if you hold more objectives in your turn, you get a point. If you killed more units than them, you get a point. I think it's shooting and close combat, and then there's something else.
Yeah,
it's like 5 different things where you can get a point here or there, and it totals up really well over the course of a game.
He also took Assassinate, and he also took Engage.
Okay.
So, I I put my Rangers behind the walls. Now, had I pre-measured, I would have known that the Rangers were too close to getting charged by Possessed, and I was going to lose both units on the first turn. Which is really bad because I took R&D, and I didn't deep strike anything. So I got 1/4 of R&D. Only my home deployment. Got a fat 0 on that secondary. When realizing, so on his he goes first, he kills both units of Rangers. The Incarn jumps to be right next to his deployment zone. He moves up to the middle of the table. He actually doesn't bring the Terminators up aggressively. He describes this later as a mistake. I think he's right. He was keeping the Terminators back so they could respond, but if he puts them up as far with everything else, then they're a threat I have to deal with. So
the nice thing about them is they're so durable that you don't have to wait to respond. They're a great instigator.
So there's 5 Possessed in each objective that have killed off Rangers. And then there's, in the middle of the table, there's a unit of 5 Possessed and the Disco Lord and Abaddon, and the Noise Marines are a little bit farther away, and the Terminators are right behind everybody. So I see this, I decide I have to go. I'm going to get a 0 R&D. I have to now table the Emperor's Children in order to win this game. So I send out a unit of 10 troops with buffs on them, and a unit of Banshees. This is important that the unit of Banshees are going as well. The Incarn comes up. I get off the Mortal Wound Pulse Power. I do 3 Mortal Wounds to the Disco Lord. Tee-hee-hee. I do some Mortals to Abaddon. Tee-hee-hee. I kill a Terminator. I kill a Possessed. Ha-ha! Then I flame and do some more damage to that stupid Disco Lord. I also smite the Disco Lord because I don't know what to do with the other power on the Incarn, because he's going to charge into the Disco Lord, and I don't need +1 to wound. I actually did. I don't know why I'm doing it. Oh, no, I don't need it. He's T5. I'm strength 11.
T6, I thought.
T6.
Fine, whatever. I don't do +1 to wound. I smite instead, and that lets me do more damage to the Disco Lord. So the Disco Lord somehow gets down with shooting and psychics, gets down to 2 wounds remaining. Now, my whole plan here is that the Banshees charge the Possessed and the Disco Lord and fight last them both. The Incarn then charges the Disco Lord, and the troops charge the Possessed. He's not fight on death, so the troops get to pick up the Possessed without me worrying about them interrupting. And the Incarn's going to go first and pick up the Disco Lord, who I believe can fight on death with a stratagem, right?
Okay. Something his army can.
Yeah.
But only one.
So what happens is, and it's really strange, is the Disco Lord's at 2. So I just don't even charge the Incarn into the Disco Lord. I just charge the Banshees into it and then have one Banshee touch the Possessed. The Banshees then pick up the Disco Lord. He decides not to fight. I don't remember if he fights on death. The Banshees die either way. It doesn't matter. The troops go in and pick up the unit of Possessed. The Incarn ends up with nobody of interest to punch. No. I'm sorry. The Incarn ends up charging into a unit of Noise Marines and picking them up.
Sure.
Some value. Now, I also have charged Harlequin Bikes and Banshees into the Possessed that are on the objective that's closest to me, that has a wall on it, and I wipe them with Fight Last on them. So the Incarn goes in, does all this stuff, then the Incarn leaves over to that objective and hangs there with the Banshees and the Bikes. I've now done a tremendous amount of damage to him, and the only things he's going to get to kill in return is 2 units of Banshees and a unit of troops, which he does, easily kills them. And he moves up. Then what happens is the Incarn goes in again, and I have a fantastic thing where the Incarn says, all right, Abaddon's got 3 wounds left. I think I can get it done. I'm going into Abaddon. And Abaddon, I failed to kill Abaddon. Fight lasted Abaddon, I believe. I don't remember what. Maybe he was out of CP. That could be it. I failed to kill the Abaddon, and on his next turn, he shoots at the Harlequin Bikes holding the objective for me with the Noise Marines. And I say, oh, you got 3 damage AP3s onto me? I'm not going to take that on my invul. I'm going to take it on my armor save. All 3 bikes get picked up. Incarn leaves Abaddon and goes back to the objective to hold the objective for me. He puts a little bit of shooting into the Incarn. It's not enough. I then shoot Abaddon with D cannons on my turn because Abaddon's now not in combat and has no legal charge target. So I don't remember the exact middle of the game, but basically I just keep charging waves and waves into him while the Ynarri dances around, and I easily table his arm. If he moves the Terminators all died to D cannons. That's like D cannons looking at them with rerolls. No, I didn't get rerolls because he's got the transit.
Yeah, transit.
But D cannons on the first turn, D cannon shot him, and he's got like a 4-up save. It's crazy. And then I pull out and I look at him and I just shoot him and I just shoot off the Terminators. Mm-hmm. I don't even think. I think I end up charging them with troops to kill the last 4 or 5.
Yep.
But it's a brutal matchup for him because he isn't as fast as I am. So he's coming forward, and then I'm slamming into him. And then he's coming forward, and then I'm slamming into him. And because of all of the fight lasts, he just can't do it. Mm-hmm. So he ends up getting only a 4 on Adorn the Canvas Eclectic. He gets 0 on Assassinate, even though my Autarch does go in. Autarch doesn't die. There's actually a turn where the Autarch charges Lucius, the Eternal, and fight lasts him and then kills him before he gets to go. So that wasn't great for Lucius. And then he only gets 4 points on engage. I got nothing on R&D. I only got 9 on Psychic Interrogation because I accidentally killed all of his characters on the 3rd turn of the game, a thing that I had not even considered might happen. And I got a 13 on No Prisoner. So the end score is 72 to 44. I only got a 42 on primary. So a pretty solid win. At this point, I have a loss, and I know that there's going to be a lot of 4-1s, and I'm worried about where I'm going to rank. So I wish I had taken a bit more time to think about secondaries on this and get more points from this game. Because this is a very easy matchup for the Ynarri. Paul played great. We've talked about Paul a lot. He's a close combat, very knowledgeable close combat player. He really got how to play the army. The only mistake I saw him make was that Terminator unit not moving up as aggressively as it could have. The possessed are the things that have to take those objectives from the Rangers. The Incarn Gambit, he doesn't really have a way around. So
I think really interesting is that's a very the Emperor Shielding is very powerful, but you're bringing the thing that makes it powerful as well. You're like the fight last just cancel each other, and then they're back to actually not being very good when they don't have their fight last.
Yeah,
they're just some chaos-based Marines. It's right. Very. I'd never really conceptualized that to match that way.
Well, it's playing your army, only easy mode.
Yeah,
everything's exactly the same. Fast-moving possessed that I have to maneuver around and kill, and really good beat stick characters. Like it's the same thing. It's just that when I play you, everything fights on death.
Yeah, you run
so
out of
I had
resources when
trained
you
for
fight
this
me
matchup with weights on, basically.
Yeah, true.
Okay, next up I play Zach. We already talked about Zach's list.
Yeah.
I also have too many attacks for Zach's list.
Yeah, those Harlequins are murder for him.
Yeah, and especially the Harlequin unit that I gave 40 attacks to, I had reroll 1s on, and I told them to ignore invuls, especially that one.
Don't you also ignoring invuls is pretty gross.
The really interesting thing here is he went first. I put a unit of Rangers in the middle of the table. He charged and killed the unit of Rangers. And so the Incarn appeared in the middle of the table, and the Incarn then I spent a CP to fall back and charge. I can do that with the Incarn, right? I'm now realizing the Incarn has different keywords than everybody else.
It has Azuriani,
so it should be fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the craft roll traits, so it doesn't get. It doesn't get fight first, right?
I know the Avatar.
Oh no, it's Ynarri.
The Avatar doesn't get it, but the Incarn does.
There, but no, I'm fine. The only thing the Incarn can't do is it can't LFR, which is significant because I would LFR all the time.
Yeah, it's a monster.
Yeah. Neither can the Avatar, by the way, you flippin' cheaters. So many flippin' battle reports where that Avatar gets LFR'd every time I rage up my computer. It's like very specific. It's the only things that can't have it are the monsters. The problem he has, I actually do my 6 attacks instead of my 10 attacks because I want as few dead pinks when he charges the Incarn. So like the Incarn appears and he piles into the Incarn to make me attack him.
Okay.
And I do 6 attacks and don't do any rerolls, trying desperately not to kill a lot of pinks. I kill 3. And he uses those to Be'lakor is off to the side. He uses that to wall Be'lakor so that the Incarn doesn't go into Be'lakor, which is totally what I'm going to do. Yeah. My plan is to shoot Be'lakor with D cannons and then charge the Incarn in and kill him, and then charge the rest of my army into the pinks and win the game. He blocks it off, but at the expense of not blocking off the mirror. And so the Incarn goes and moves 1.5 inches from the Incarn. So when I do damage, he can't get between me and the Incarn. Or sorry,
The mirror.
The mirror.
Right.
I'm thinking, great, I'll kill the mirror. The mirror's a jerk. He's thinking, I took psychic interrogation, and the mirror is my only really good way of doing it, which I had not thought of at all. But the psychic interrogation with the +1 to cast is a big deal. He also took grind, which was a terrible choice, and banners, which was not good against me either. So the Incarn kills the mirror on the first turn. I run in. I also run I also do the. I have a 6 on advance and a 6 on a charge with a Banshee unit, and we'll go around his pinks and kill his priest. So I kill the priest, I kill the pinks, and I do like 10 damage to Bellicor with D-cannons on the first turn, and then just go and charge with everything. And I don't kill that much on the first turn, but his killback is so bad that on the next turn I'm in close. He kills 1 unit of troops, and then the rest of my army charges, and the pinks die on that turn. And so does Bellicor. And so Bellicor now runs away from me to try to psychic interrogate me because he wants to get points. I deny the psychic interrogate with the Incarn, and then on turn 3, the Incarn goes and finishes off Bellicor and finishes the game. So I only score 75 though, which feels terrible, by the way. And the reason I only score 75 is because my primary is 0-0-12-12.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because he took all the objectives on the first turn, and I don't have enough OBSEC to deal with it because my OBSEC's in the middle of the table punching him. So not great on that in that regard. Another game where I wish I'd gotten points, honestly. My final game, I'm 3-1. My final game was into Nick Villegas. Villegas. I don't know. Sorry, Nick. Nick is 21 years old and has been playing competitive 40K for less than 1 year. But has been playing into all these different events. He's played Chuck. He's played me. He is very good for having only played for a year. Very competent player. Knows his rules incredibly well. He brought a Leviathan list. Chuck, are you going to read it? Am I going to read it? Who's going to read it?
I started thinking I would read it, and then I don't know what these words are.
Okay. I'm on it. Leviathan Tyranids. 2 Neurothropes and a Flyrant. And the Flyrant has the Reaper of Obliterax and rarefied enhancements. Then 3 units of 9 Tyranid Warriors that have the 3 Venom Cannons each. That gun is so gross. Oh, and you can advance and shoot it, by the way. So good. And then everybody else has Deathsplitter Bone Swords because he's not dumb. Then a unit of 3 Tyrant Guard, a unit of 3 Venom Thropes, a unit of 3 2 units of 3 Zone 3 units of 3 Zone Thropes, and that's the list. We played on Table Quarters again. I don't know what mission it is. Must be Death and Zeal. What?
Last one? Just Data Scry?
Oh, yeah, Data Scry. Yeah.
Yes.
So he deployed too far back is the first thing that happened. He was too worried about my threat range. And he deployed his big blocking piece of terrain too far back and put his army behind it. And what it meant is I had a full turn before Tyranid Warriors were threatening me. And that was a big deal. Again, I baited him with Rangers. I put the Rangers in the corner behind a wall so he couldn't shoot them with the total intention of sacrificing the Incarn to kill the Flyrant. The Flyrant is a massive problem for my list. Billy, why don't you talk about why the Flyrant's so hard for the Ynarri?
Well, so my actual experience is that the piece that's missing from his army, the 2 Harpies, are the biggest issue for Ynarri.
Yes, Harpies. Planes in general are rough for Eldar. That's just, we don't need to be as specific as Ynarri.
Yeah. I mean, I've actually found that the Incarn doesn't just one phase it because, to your point, with 6 attacks, you will roll 2 1s to hit every single time.
I stacked up on Fate Dice. I was all in on this.
So I actually don't know. To me, it's the Warriors are actually the scariest piece.
All right. So the Warriors have to get to me, and I'm going to get to charge them before they charge me. Sure. Period. End of story. But not no question. What?
But not the Flyrant. The Flyrant is fast enough to pick its fights.
Exactly. The Flyrant gets to charge D-cannons if it wants. Like the Flyrant is comically fast.
Yeah.
The D-cannons are the entire game. because what I'm going to do is I'm going to blunt the Leviathan army with close combat and shred it as hard as I can, while the D-cannons get 5 turns of shooting. Remember, from those that have been listening to the show for a long time, how much we talked about Triptide when I was playing it? And the whole thing with Triptide wasn't about how much damage you do each turn. It was about keeping your flippin' damage alive, was the entirety of Triptide. This is very much like that, because I can just table this army if I stay alive. So what I did is I put the Rangers in the corner of the table, barely on the objective behind a wall, and he charged 9 Tyranid warriors over into them. Great. Incarn appears. He wasn't able to pile into the Incarn, which was wonderful. I don't think he wanted to anyways, because I ignore Invul and I just like pick up like 4 warriors there.
Yeah.
And so the Incarn's not in combat. So now it's my turn. And I run a troop unit over to basically be a 5-inch charge from that Tyranid warrior unit in the corner of the table. And I move 3 D-cannons to a lane where they can see those Tyranid warriors. So my plan is shoot the D-cannons in that 9 Tyranid warriors, then charge them with 3 damaged troops. Done. The Incarn jumps over and gets ready to charge some zone throbes. But he ends up being so close to the Flyrant that I load up on Fate dice to kill the Flyrant. Now, the Flyrant also takes away a whole bunch of his special rules as well by dying.
Yeah.
And is his Warlord, not that that matters in this game. Oh, secondary, sorry. I took no prisoners, banners, and Warp Gate because we're on the weird diagonal. Oh, I'm so sorry. We're on the diagonal. It's not table quarters.
Yeah, vital intelligence, Chuck said.
Oh, I can't take that. I don't think that objective is 6 inches from my deployment zone.
No, they're all down the line. They're 12 inches away.
Man, I am so sorry, Nick. It doesn't matter. This matchup does not it doesn't matter. I would have taken Assassinate instead and been fine. Man, that feels bad. I just got confused. There's only 4 of 9 missions where you can take Warp Gate, and I thought it was one of them. So, damn it. I feel really bad about that. Okay, well, I'll apologize to Nick. It didn't affect the tournament or the game, so. But that feels bad. Okay, anyways. So I took Warp Gate, cheating, because of how far away that objective was from where he put his terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I put a bunch of close combat stuff kind of up by it so that when he sent the warriors in, it would work out. So the other thing I did on the first turn is I moved the Harlequin bikes up and I stood them in a line between 2 pieces of terrain, one of which was not something he could move through. And what that did is it meant that so he's got 3 units of warriors, one I'm dealing with. That stops the second one from charging into the D-cannons. And then the third one is going across the table to try to get my gate. And what I did there is I actually flew and shot Swooping Hawks and killed one of them, actually, which was exciting. And then put the Swooping Hawks on that closer objective to him, but behind a wall. And it's super chargeable range for the Tyranid warriors. So what I want is the warriors to charge and kill the Hawks. And even if he overruns, I've got so much close combat there. I've got Banshees and Incubi that could just reach. Yeah. So I've set up a number of traps here. The D-cannons end up picking up so many Tyranid warriors that the troops don't have a hard job at all. The bikes in the middle of the table shoot and do nothing. The Incarn goes in, kills the Flyrant with ease. The Flyrant fights on death, puts me down to 3 wounds. The Incarn bounces back to where those Tyranid warriors died in the corner of the table. The Incarn ends up dying to smite and shooting, so fine. Mm-hmm. But the Incarn killed the Tyrant, which is all I wanted from it. He easily kills those troops that are with the Incarn in the corner of the table. Exactly as I scripted, the Leviathan warriors charge in and kill the Hawks. They then overrun back. That's not far enough away. My army's crazy fast. The Incubi and 2 units of Banshees charge into that unit. It turns out with Fight Last on them, and he didn't have an invul on that unit. So the Hawks, so the 2 units of Banshees and the Incubi easily pick up that lead table. The D-cannons look at it, shoot it, pick it up. So it's end of turn 2, and the Flyrant, all 3 units of Tyranid warriors are dead. The rest of my army takes the next turn to kill all of the Zone Throats and the Tyrant Guard, and the game is over. He's been tabled. I believe that my army just does that to this Leviathan list. With the Harpies, I think it's harder.
Yeah.
I think I have to kill the Harpies first turn, and so that delays everything. I don't think I would sacrifice the Incarn in that matchup. I think the Incarn would try to kill a Harpy.
Yeah, you get in a weird spot where it's like it's the game of the Harpies try to kill the D-Cannons, and the D-Cannons trying to kill the Harpies, and you see who wins. And you have to keep the Incarn back, because if you don't win that race, then you need a solution.
I think the D-Cannons are actually... I think the Harpies are actually bad at killing the D-Cannons, but maybe I'm wrong.
The Harpies end up trying to kill the troops.
Yeah.
Because then you just have nothing on the board, and the D-Cannons don't have the time to pick up the warriors, because the warriors can get to them on turn 2.
Right.
Okay.
The troops are the really important thing in the matchup.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you play against this list, that's just true. The troops are the heavy lifting, super MVP, massive hammer. That's what they are, and they're very fast. What's that?
Which is why I've gone to 3 of them.
And I'm tempted.
I'll get some more reps and report back.
Well, the problem is I need to find points that aren't the second Banshee unit, because I value it too much.
It's like the Incubi and the Swooping Hawks.
That doesn't work. Then I can't have the bikes.
That's true. It's the Incubi,
I guess I could go back to Wind Riders instead of the Swooping Hawks.
I'll show you my list that
we'll talk about it later.
What's it like trying to make a Chaos Army?
So I got 100, and I would have gotten 100 even without taking Warp Gate, because I was literally considering taking Assassinate, and I killed his entire army, and he does have 5 characters.
There you go.
So fine. No, he has 4 characters, so I would have gotten a 12. I would have gotten 97, but it doesn't matter. It did not matter in the overall rankings, because the way the ties all worked out. God, I feel so bad about that. That's all right. Naj won the event with his Necrons. If you want to hear about that, listen to TNG this week. I'm sure he talked about it in great detail. And Hank got 2nd place, and he got like 19 points more than me. And I had to get 20 less points to be lower than Steve to get 4th. So I could have gotten a 0 on Warp Gate, and it wouldn't have changed the tournament results.
What you needed is not the game with Zach, because his list doesn't allow you to get a high score. Then you might have been able to sneak up on.
Well, actually, it was the points I dropped on Paul that stopped me from catching.
Well, both of them together. Like those, I think Zach's list is definitely just like a big wet blanket on people. Like, no points for you.
Yeah, that was really frustrating. It would have been fun to get 2nd, but I got 1st at a lot of tournaments in a row, and then I got 4th at Best of Tabletop Open, and I've gotten 3rd. So 2nd is next on my way back to getting
back
1st.
To 1st? Is that the plan?
Yeah, basically. Incredibly fun. I don't think if there was a tournament this weekend, I would play this list 100% to the point, exactly the same. The only change I would make is I would make the Farseer the Warlord instead of the Autarch. And the reason for that is my reasoning was that the Autarch will always be with the troops, so I'll always get the AP buff where I want it. The problem is that I like the Autarch to die, and there's a mission where you don't get CP if the Autarch dies.
And you're spending a CP. Is the Warlord trait required to be put on the Warlord? No, you could just use a different stratagem to give the Arc Ambush of Blades. It doesn't need to be your... Never mind. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out, because are you putting Ambush of Blades on the Farseer or on the...
Well, Autarch? It's going on the Warlord, which is the Autarch.
And
are you saying that the way that works now is because I have to spend a CP either way?
It doesn't really matter.
A Warlord and a Warlord trait are just different things from each other?
I think so now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. So maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe the Farseer will be the Warlord and the Autarch will have Ambush of Blades. But I don't think the Farseer having Ambush of Blades is really wrong either. So that's the only thing I'm considering in this entire list. We talked about changing in the Shadow Seer for the directional smite that he can take from Harlequins to help kill the Foul Blightspawn. Because of having Rangers and Fate Dice, the Farseer gives you a reroll on Fate Dice. And you have the Hawks. I think I don't need the Shadow Seer, and I don't want to lose the CP power because I use all of my CP. So that's my big consideration. Chuck, what are you considering changing in your list?
Oh, so let's go the other way. What am I not considering changing?
Okay.
I love the Demon Prince. The ignoring phase gate seems really important in this meta, and he hits like a ton of bricks. And I don't mind spending his CP to reroll the one he rolls to hit. So like he's always good. and then he's doing mental interrogation and psychic rituals for me. Like he's getting all that done. The 6 units that are the 3 possessed units and the 3 warp talent units, those are all amazing. They feed right into what Bile wants to do, right? I'm MSU trading. They're some of the best units in the game for that. So all of that to me is locked in. I do feel like a shooting element is important.
Yeah.
But I also think it'd be interesting for me to just take the shooting element off as like training wheels, just being like, I have 30 possessed. And I'm going to run them into the center of the table for my piece of terrain, and you're going to shoot them, and you're going to do awful things to them, and then what's left is going to charge you. Because the shooting is often letting me down in a lot of games. What I'm doing often is beating people with 16 turn points in my army, and the other 400 points is there to help me with a night matchup.
Right.
And if I could just it helps, but it doesn't like cinch that matchup for me. So like if I could do that a different way, where I'm using those points to really hammer in and get actual hundreds instead of 80s out of people in the other centers, I think that's all worthwhile. I kind of all over the place. I do think we kind of hinted at before. I think the Warlock Executioners are the correct shooting, and you can fit that, and 15 possessed and 15 warp talons and some psychic buffing. The piece that I most consider taking out all the time is the Lord Discordant. He's 175 points.
Ooh.
That doesn't hurt a ton. I think he's worth that. But I'm also putting 2 CP into him. I'm going to stop and just put 1 CP into him with the Flames of Smite. He doesn't need to hit any harder than he already does. But that's all those CP costs are big, and HQ costs are like that's the first thing you have to think about when you're making Chaos Space Marine Army is how you're going to use your HQs. And if I could have another Master Possession in the list, I get wounds on 6s to hit or auto wound, and I can get +1 to wound, like as powers, and that really helps me, deal with different gates. Or I can get a +1 strength or +1 toughness. Like there's a ton of like that tree is stacked, and so I would not be sad to have more pieces there. So there's like a bunch of different ways that it can move, and I don't know that any of those choices that I just talked about are bad. It's trying to figure out which ones suit me best, and what suits the tournament I'm going to, right? Like, there's definitely differences. If you're playing on GW Train, I'd probably just go in, all in, fight. Right? If you're doing player placed, a little bit of shooting is good. So,
yeah. And then for LVTT, like the conversation is, do we just not pair you into Knights?
Right. And I think that's, if we can identify that I have a Knights problem, and we're just like, avoid this at all costs, and I can just do whatever, I can either dead or 20 something else, great.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually the correct answer for a team event entirely. In which case it might also be the right answer for singles. Like if I can get close and just do alternative missions against Knights, great.
Yeah.
So I'm all over the place, but I think that core is good. Like start there. Start with all your demon kin and your demon prince and see what else you do from there.
Personally, I'm most afraid of you going to 30 possessed and not having any shooting.
Yeah. No, I think
that's by far the hardest thing for me to deal with.
Yeah. If I move 10 possession to the center of the table and I say deal with this, whatever deals with it in close combat probably still dies.
Right.
But also you have to expose a lot of stuff. I think 30 possessed and some shooting is really interesting because I can shoot what's in the center if I want to, depending if I want to. But I can also just shoot another 10 possessed at it. Right? It's very crazy.
Yeah. You know what I should have asked Billy about. So Billy, you made the original Ynarri list, and I changed it, and you're playing it more mission focused than I am. I'm just smashing people at this point. I'm not taking behind enemy lines or the Ranger secondary or anything. What were your thoughts as you listened to me talk about it? Did anything surprise you? Did you have interest? What sort of Ynarri thoughts did you have while you were listening to me go through my games? Because you've been waiting to hear me go through these games.
It largely conformed to what my experience is. Well, the thing that you said about the Tyranids matchup, because that's the one that I've personally been struggling into. I didn't quite understand the way their defensive mechanisms worked. And so I was throwing the wrong things into the wrong things. I think I finally have it figured out. And your comment about the decan and shooting over 5 turns is the way to win it is that for me is going to be really important. The other thing that I've done in the list is moved stuff around to allow for 3 units of troops and 3 units of rangers. And I think that solves some of the problems in both directions. Like
Mhm.
it gives you that extra action monkey that can
Mhm.
go in different places, which unlocks a lot of secondaries. And then just having the third troop squad just gives you so much raw power that I think makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So just hearing those pieces and then just validating of, okay, you get into these matchups against these armies. Is it actually working? Because so much of my concern was small sample size. Have I just gotten lucky? And hearing just the way you talk about it validates that it has the power level to play at, the various tiers that you want to. And so
Right.
that to me was the most interesting pieces to hear.
Just thinking out loud, how many points is the unit of 10 troops? 180, is that right?
I've gone down to 9, so mine are 162.
Okay.
Just for points.
All right. So basically, if I did a 9, which I think is fine for my third unit, I'm leaving the first 2 at 10s. But guys, when you're considering dropping like one guy off a unit to fit under points, think about math into the thing you're worried about. I want to make sure I have every dude possible for when I have to charge 2 things: 9 Leviathan Tyranid Warriors and 10 Chaos Terminators.
Right.
In both those cases, I want all 10 guys. But if I did a 9, it'd be 162. Rangers would be 65. So that's 227. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And 110 is the incubi. So I can almost turn the Swooping Hawks into a unit of 3 bikes. And that almost gets me there with the incubi gone. And then I get to keep my Harlequin bikes and get to keep my second unit of Banshees.
Like craft roll bikes?
No, just the 3. I actually like the 3 shuriken 60-point dudes for craft rolled. They go 22. They have 12 shuriken shots, fine. But most importantly, they go 22 and stand on a thing.
Yeah.
And they're small. They are on the little base. They're not on the Shining Spear base. So they're really easy to put behind a wall on an objective, and they're a great YOLO forward thing that has to be in. They're good for engage. They're just good.
If you need to shave even more points, you could do a Viper there too. That's like an extra 10 points cheaper.
That's actually great. I actually would prefer the Viper because the Viper can't be walked over by knights, which means that you can put him in a gap between 2 runes and stop and move block knights with him.
It's not prisoner points as well, but you're already really low, right?
Oh yeah, that's one of the funny things we didn't talk about. This episode's gone on forever. Whatever, I'm having a good time. So the funny thing about the list is it gives up like, I don't know, a 6 on no prisoners, something like that.
1 wound models, yeah.
And I have 6 vehicles, and all of them have 5 wounds. So I'm not. I also give up a 6 on big game. It's so funny. I took it in this little box.
Yeah.
Here's 2,000 points of Eldar, everybody. Like, it's so small. It's so much infantry, but they're all 1 wound T3 models. It's just a hilarious army to play. Yeah. Like you don't give up. You give up assassinate in spades. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, no. Only 4 characters.
4 characters.
12, yeah.
And some of them hide way in the back.
Every time someone's taking assassinate against me, other than Anthony tabling me with Blood Angels, every time somebody's taken assassinate against me, it's been bad for them. Because I will just not give you my characters. And I'm a close combat person who is going to come at you. So tell me at what point you're going to jump over my army and go get these characters.
When I'm finished with the army.
What's that?
When I'm finished with the army.
Yeah.
That's the Blood Angels' point of view is. Up to all that, right. Then I'll kill characters.
Exactly right. So, I really like the idea of 10 additional troops. I'm very in on that. I just don't know. And what's funny is I also want another unit of Rangers.
Yeah.
I think that the Rangers open up more secondary play in games where I need it than the Swooping Hawks do. And I think they also are another unit that can shoot at the stupid Fel Blight Spawn. 15 Rangers with the Autarch standing near them is 15 shots, re-rolling ones to hit on 2s. Like, let's go.
Yep.
So, stupid Fel Blight Spawn. The Fel Blight Spawn guys, if you play a close combat army, you better have a plan or you cannot beat that army. Zach was playing Word Bearers. And he had this amazing Word Bearers army that goes to the middle of the table and says, haha, here we are. We're scoring all of the points and you can't kill us. Haha. And then every time he played Death Guard, they just whooped him because he can't charge them and they can charge him.
I'm fond of my plan. Charge them.
Yeah, just go in. Whatever.
We're all dead. Now what?
Yeah. Everybody dies. Woo!
Unfortunately,
I feel like the picture at
the
the
minus
top
one
of your-
damage in the spawn sucks.
I think you should have a
Yeah.
picture at the top of your army list, Chuck, and I think it should be the Elmo fire one, where Elmo's going like this and there's fire behind it, because I feel like that's what playing your list is like.
Yeah, we're all gonna die.
Yeah. So anything else on Ynarri that you think is interesting, or that your big takeaways from having me help get to help you with the list?
No, I think we've actually coalesced very close to a similar list. I'll share it with you later, and in the Discord that everyone can join by becoming a Patreon.
Yes.
What the most current version is, and I think we're actually incredibly close to the same list.
Okay. Well, I love it. I
Yeah.
think it's fantastic.
It's so much fun.
I think that if you have the ability to play it, it's not easy to play. Let's be clear on that. There are matchups that Billy is losing and I'm winning purely because of the difference in our experience in the game. It is not an easy army to play, but if you want an army with a lot of moving parts that smashes people with Eldar, it is the choice. I also have played a lot of gun-focused Eldar, and I don't think that's wrong. This army has so much better play into Necrons. We played it yesterday into Naj's GT winning list, and I basically deployed aggressively forward and then went and just tabled the Necrons, basically. Yeah. If Chuck had gone first, he gets more points and is tabled faster, is what we figured out, because he's closer to me.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal. Even if the Falling Stars rolls well on the troops, there's just too much stuff that smashes too well, and the D cannons are a massive problem for the Necrons.
Well, and if the Falling Stars don't, it's like negative. Like it's this weird scenario.
What's that, Chuck?
So if the Falling Stars, like if I just do 2 to you, you're stronger.
Yeah.
Like it's dangerous.
Also, you can, something Chuck doesn't know is there is a stratagem to bring back, a psychic power. There's a psychic power to bring back infantry models from the Incarn.
D3.
Do you have that psychic power?
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because I have all the Incarn psychic powers on the only.
And it brings back D3 troops?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's value.
So I could lose 3 on the first turn, and I could bring back 3 and have a significantly shorter charge.
Yeah, or 2, have a shorter charge, and be more powerful. Like,
Uh-huh.
although I don't like that unit hits so hard, I don't know what it doesn't go through.
I had it certainly didn't have enough buffs to go through the first Plague Marines I charged. That was bad. Anywho, so I love it. I'm going to keep playing it. I'm not going to focus on other Eldar for right now. I don't think Hail is interesting at all without Ignore Cover. I just think it's not good enough. So I don't play it. So I'm going to keep going on Ynarri. Sounds like Billy's going to keep going on Ynarri. Chuck's all in on Bile, but you're also fooling around with the Iron Warriors list?
The Iron Warriors is definitely a fooling around with list. Like,
Okay.
Like if I were to play it into your Eldar, I'd be dead. Because you drop the Harlequins into a squad and it's just gone. I'm side-eyeing maybe a release for Chaos Demons in the next 3 months. So that's really...
I heard that we were going to get the pre-order announcement today.
Well,
have we?
In the show, did we?
Let's look live on air. Nothing like cruising the internet.
Great audio.
Content.
It looks like Horus Heresy pre-orders. Oh.
Okay. Can I finally
Next
get that
week,
guy with the axe?
Black Library Heroes on the page and the tabletop amid an arcane cataclysm. No.
Oh.
I see
whatever
no.
that means.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Still no demons, it looks like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Keep waiting.
All right. So dumb. And then also Chuck has hobbied up Naja's Necron list because we're going to do some bit reps with that.
Yeah,
we actually recorded one yesterday. We missed an important step on the more interesting game. I did never hit record.
Oh, that really reduces the amount of recording we get.
Yeah. So we recorded the first game, which was Ynarri into Necrons, and I'll make something out of that. But the really, really interesting game was the Necrons into Chuck's Bile list, where it looked like the Necrons were going to lose, but Necrons were scoring too many points. And then they didn't die, and they killed the Chaos list.
Yeah.
Like, we both thought I was going to get tabled and end up with too many points. And at the end of the game, I had the Silent King with like 3 wounds on him. And I had 4 immortals who refused to die. A couple little bitch characters, excuse my language.
Those immortals did die.
Okay.
They just weren't into it and just like were alive again.
And then you only had 10 cultists left at the end.
Yeah.
So that list to me is my choice for best list in the game.
Yeah, I agree. That's why we
especially
practice
now that Naj just figured out how you play it into Knights. Like, it's so incredible.
Yeah, I'm sort of a nightmare thinking about that. Like, we both played it, and we probably bumbled around with it. If with Naj at the helm, I'm sure it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just it scores points incredibly fast. It beats the crap out of you, and it's durable.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all the things.
Yep.
So, okay, well, we've lost Billy.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Let's wrap it up here. Hey guys, if you have not been liking and subscribing our stuff, it makes a big difference. Could you please? It would really mean a lot to me. I should have asked for it earlier because not everybody makes it to the 3-hour mark of the episode.
If you haven't liked and subscribed, and you're at 2 hours and 49 minutes of the show, like who are you?
Yeah, what's going on with you? We do have a lot of new content this week coming out. On Tuesday, we are announcing the new pricing model for Best in Tabletop, as well as I'm releasing a image that will tell you what you're going to get, because that's been confusing and it's not going to be confusing anymore. This is the week where we're going to start releasing 2 bit reps a week, one public, one private. So that'll be exciting. The bit reps are fantastic. If you guys haven't checked it out, you just go to our YouTube and watch short form bat reps where we tell you the story of playing 40K, and you learn a lot. And we also make it fun. I make a lot of jokes. Sometimes I'm funny. Sometimes I'm only funny to me.
Always funny to someone.
Well, yeah, to me.
We could always be entertained with how much you enjoy it.
I want to thank Billy Heilman, one of my favorite members of the Best of Tabletop Network, because we get to do 7 a.m. Billy and Colin in the morning, which I love doing.
It's fun.
It's so fun to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and just be excited about 40K. That's our mission, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to be sour and complain.
No, we have a good time.
Yeah,
the game's in a great spot, and
our show is the Ted Lasso of 40K. It really is. We just want you to be happy and enjoy talking about 40K.
Mm-hmm.
And this week we get to talk about hoverbike dwarfs.
And WTC.
Which are wonderful.
Okay,
yes.
fine.
And no one will say anything bad about them.
Okay, they're wonderful. I like them very much. Chuck has told me that I like them. Chuck has been very clear to me that I like them. So I must clearly like them. I actually think that they suffer from the GW thing where GW painted them badly. I actually think is in the pictures. I think when Chuck paints them, I'll like them. That's what I think. I think both Chuck and I are going to play dwarfs, though, so that's going to be weird. That hasn't happened before.
I don't know.
You guys never overlap.
I have to make the army to continue I've made one of every army in the game. I have no idea if I'm going to like. I like them aesthetically, but whether they play well or something, it makes a big difference on what I'm doing when I make the army.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I won't build the army and I'll just take it from Chuck and play it.
Yeah.
That's actually a more practical Colin strategy, is actually what that is. Oh no, Chuck, I want to take your models to this tournament, but you don't have this unit. And then he just makes it. It's great.
Yeah, it's easy.
He's like, I'll just make it out of bits. Here's my dark Admech dwarves.
Well, I don't think I'm going to do that. I want to make that army the way it is. It's so I like the aesthetic a lot. So,
all right, that's us, everybody. Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate you. Remember that 40K is fun, and while there's a lot to complain about, there's a lot more. The meta's great. Yeah. Tournaments are great. Everything going on is wonderful. You should get out there and play some 40K. Come find us on our Patreon group at patreon.com/BIFPOD or patreon.com/bestintabletop, and come join the conversation. We're there right now talking. People are talking about WTC at this very moment. So, bye, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
Bye.